Downtown has always been the place where Angelenos from all over the city gather to peacefully protest. I support the right to demonstrate, and the mayor and I know that right is sacred, and at times it's necessary, but we must also face what's happening right now. When these peaceful rallies end and the protesters head home, another element moves in. Opportunists who come in under the cover of a peaceful protest to ravage and destroy. They are ruining local small businesses, smashing storefronts, and threatening the safety of the very community that...
All right, we were listening to the Los Angeles mayor and the Los Angeles police commissioner announcing a curfew for parts of downtown Los Angeles.
So yeah, chat, if you're just joining us,
8 p.m. local time, that's 8 p.m.
curfew has been decreed. Most of the protesters got out as soon as that curfew went into effect.
At what Chief Jim McDonald
a few people were apparently arrested by plainclothes police.
LAPD and California Highway Patrol just this afternoon going into this evening. That's a total of 200.
And so there's not as much going on tonight in LA right now. Not because of Marines, not because of National Guard. Those sad troops are you know, sitting around with not much to do. They're kind of twiddling their thumbs, right? Trump sent them in performatively to create a narrative, right? They haven't really been involved much. And they were sent in without funding for food, for water, or fuel, or a place to sleep. Trump did not think, you know, these troops are going to need to sleep somewhere, so they didn't have they slept on each other. They slept in really small spaces in federal buildings, apparently, right? But it's not that's, you know, got the streets quiet tonight. It's the curfew, essentially.
So we got about a minute left here, John. What's to keep people from moving somewhere else?
Well, I think that the center of activity has been around the federal courthouse, around the Civic Center, and around the activity.
We do have the short stream going on now, so I'm going to say hi to those people.
Let's remove the hot spot from the darkness. And then everybody is either going to go home or come up with some other plan. But it will relieve, I mean, right now they're operating with 725 officers deployed in this square mile, which they can then spread out to other places and respond to other jobs.
All right, so I'm trying to decide what we even want to watch tonight. We've got this channel has got multiple TikToks up. You know what? They're not showing this live, are they? That's not live, is it? Like, at least where it says Santa Ana right there, it looks like it's... I don't know, I can't tell. It looks like it's earlier. So, yeah, if you don't know... although there's nothing going on in the Paramount area, the Compton area in Los Angeles right now, the protests have spread. You know, when you confront protesters with militarized police, it tends to do that, and both in terms of the severity of the engagement, as well as protests popping up in multiple places. In some places out of solidarity and sympathy for those rising up to defend LA, and in some cases because of things that Trump's immigration and customs enforcement and other federal law enforcement authorities have done in their localities, right? So you're seeing the protests spread. This is Santa Ana right now. We've seen Dallas. We've seen, I believe, Chicago. Ohio was the one I wasn't expecting. You know, chat, when Ohio shows up, you know that it's over. But yeah, there's KCAL News, this fucking trash station.
In that face-off situation, so now LAPD will...
Oh, okay, it's not even live. Fuck me. Again, there's some of these channels have even taken to doing what these guys are doing, which is, I think they're running footage of the previous nights. What they want to be doing is showing what they want to be doing is showing fires and confrontations and people throwing bricks and stuff like that. They have really had to milk that footage for all that they could because there just wasn't that much of it. And, you know, it really wasn't happening in daytime hours. Now there's a curfew and most people have left already. The people who haven't, you know, have been swept up in some cases by plainclothes cops. And so there's not a lot going on right now in Los Angeles, which makes me wonder what this is one of those stations that I don't even know if they're CNBC. I kind of think it's just some channel that put, you know, an NBC logo as their avatar and CNBC as their name. It have very little faith in them. Okay, so this channel, I don't know about this channel either. They seem to be in Santa Ana, or at least one of their cameras is there.
Get out of the way! Get out of the way! I know you back the VRZ, food. This shit is gone, bro!
I'm gonna see if there's anything else that we can watch from LA or from I can't tell if that's actually live from Santa Ana right now.
Push it back! Push it backward! Put it on! Put it on! Put on neutral! Put it on neutral! Put it on neutral! Put it on rear, bro! Back up! Move the car! Watch your feet! Watch your feet! Bro, you gotta get that license, bro! Don't forget about the license, bro!
It's hard to tell what's going on this vertical stream over here. We got a very unreliable camera person pointing, watching, looking at, well, I mean, like, look, on one hand, you kind of don't want to show people's faces. But on the other hand, looking at piss on the ground and people's feet and shadows, I don't know. I don't know what we're supposed to be looking at here. And then bro over here is just driving around the city, apparently. Like I said, there's a curfew in the areas that were affected by the protests over the weekend, and so that's why it's pretty quiet. Most people left when the curfew went into effect. Those who didn't, in a lot of cases, were arrested. And so there's not a lot going on in LA right now. As you can see, Santa Ana maybe is a different story, but it's hard to fucking tell with this terrible camera work. I don't even know. I don't even know what we're looking at. Look, like, I mean, we're getting a great view of this person's shoes, I guess. That's,
We only got shot once today. It's good.
Yeah, that's a Melrose, like by West Hollywood. Okay, sounds good. Alright. See you there then.
We're covering the breaking news, the protests here in Los Angeles, where we are anticipating a decision any minute regarding a curfew here in Los Angeles, which would take effect tonight as darkness falls where we are. So as we anticipate that decision coming any...
Okay, so this is news from earlier in the day explaining about the curfew. They're also going to talk about what I was talking about a minute ago, which is how the protests are spreading. I'm going to see if there's anything else that we can look at from LA. I don't think anything's really going on in LA. So what I'm going to show you instead, if you don't mind, is maybe going back a little bit and inquiring about how this all began. Did people just start protesting for no reason? Was this an anti-Trump protest? Like some people, if you watch Fox News, you might think people just wanted to burn a car or something. People just hated Waymos that much. But in reality, this all started from actions that the Trump administration took in Southern California. They've invaded Southern California. Their plan to deport 1 million people, which is batshit. That's absolute batshit. And I said when the election was going on, the only way that Trump is going to deport 1 million people is by like becoming Hitler, right? He's gonna have to pull some Nazi shit if he wants to deport 1 million people. The deportations are not going well. They're not doing them as fast as they want to. They're not on track to be anywhere close to 1 million people deported. Stephen Miller, the deputy chief of staff of the Trump administration, has been pissed off about this. He's been yelling at ICE personnel, for not deporting enough people, and they're already having to go. Look, they anybody who was violent, who was a criminal, who was dangerous, has been deported long ago. The people get deported for that stuff under any president. So that was a misnomer. That was misinformation that the Trump administration spread in order to get people to think that there needs to be some mass action, that there's this great crisis going on in the country of crime driven by lawless immigrants. In reality, people that undocumented people commit crimes at a much lower rate than citizens of the United States, right? Which makes sense, because if you're in here and your paperwork is not in order, you don't exactly want to get the attention of the feds. Committing crimes would be a great way to do that. So that wasn't real from the get-go. So what they've had to do instead is expand their dragnet, start to arrest just people at work, people at school, people picking up their kids. And as you can imagine, this kind of shit, deporting moms and dads and uncles and aunts and cousins, this is disruptive to the community. They are pulling out people that are members of the community. Even a lot of Trump voters, when they voted for Trump, when he talked about deportations, they weren't thinking you're going to deport like all the people that are part of my community that I care about. They were thinking there were these evil undocumented people out there, and that Biden was just that. Like the idea being they commit a crime, they go into the court, and somehow under Biden they were just saying, yeah, no, go free, Jack. You're an immigrant. You can do whatever you want. You can do all the crimes that you want. It should strike you as being ridiculous. It should strike you as being not credible. And in fact, it wasn't. So in order to make up the gap in between the immigrants that Trump said that he was going to deport and the number that he's able to actually deport, they've just had to expand who they're going after. And now in LA, yeah, they're showing up at schools. They're showing up at Home Depot to arrest day laborers. They're arresting people that are part of the community. And when you do that in a place like Southern California, you get the community kind of mad. So, yeah, we might move to that, taking a look at what the internet today has gotten a pretty good. What I always like to look at when I'm looking at controversial events is something like a timeline, right? Because that's what you don't get from the media a lot. You get, like I said, burning cars. You get a dude standing on a Waymo bashing it with a skateboard. Like anything that looks exciting, anything that looks dangerous, anything that stokes our primal emotions. That is what you will get in general from the news media. You don't get something that actually helps you understand why an event like this is happening in the first place, how it started, and how it progressed. And I feel like that really does shed some light on understanding exactly what's going on and what kind of country we want to live in. Now, I've already made my choice. I got the fuck out of the United States way earlier on when I saw shit going south, both in terms of Trump's economic policy, in terms of him striking out at all of his enemies, any group that he considers to be an enemy of the Trump administration, an enemy of MAGA. I could tell shit was going bad, and I am so glad to be out of the country. Right? It's a mess, and it's getting even worse with this kind of shit. You know, with now we've got a curfew in LA, and we've got troops in the street. Somebody said earlier in chat that sounds an awful lot like martial law. That sounds an awful lot like martial law. And as Karen Bass said, mayor of LA, this is a test case. Right? This is starting in LA, but it's not going to end in LA. Trump himself has admitted this, that, like, you know, when they ask, how long are you going to have troops on the streets of LA, Mr. President? And he says, oh, we'll have troops everywhere. We'll have troops all around. Right? This is his end game. This is his end game. Right? And, you know, is he going to declare, is he going to invoke the Insurrection Act? Is he going to do something else? Who fucking knows? But we do know that in his first term, he wanted to shoot protesters. He got kind of, you know, embarrassed when he tried to stage a publicity stunt where he'd walk to a church in I think Lafayette Square. This is the famous Bible scene of Trump holding the Bible. Now, a lot of people say that Trump held the Bible upside down. I'm too honest for that. Okay, I don't like Trump. I hate his guts, in fact. But any picture you saw of Trump holding a Bible upside down, that was photoshopped. He was just holding a Bible. He's a ridiculous ass clown, but he's not that much of a ridiculous ass clown. So, you know, I mean, that shit was fake. But the embarrassment that he felt by the protesters, overcoming him and deciding what he can and can't do in Washington, D.C., making him hide back in the basement of the White House again. That stuck with him, and he wanted revenge. And he said, why can't we just go out and send we got soldiers, right? Send the soldiers out, shoot these people. And they're like, Mr. President, we can't start killing American citizens. What are you talking about, you crazy man? And he's like, no, shoot him in the leg or something. You know, that'll get him, right? And it's just like his generals had to be like, Mr. President, I will not follow an illegal order from you, and I suspect many of my troops will refuse to do so as well. Yeah, that's the saddest thing that could happen in this country is, American troops point their guns at the American people. Even in January 6th, chat, they did everything they could to avoid, stuff like what happened to what's her name, and that tried to. That tried to crawl through the window to go and do and kill, senators and congressmen. She was, there were the feds that were guarding the politicians actually ended up shooting her and killing her. But they did everything that they could to avoid that horrible scene out there. Officers being crushed in doorways and shit like that. People bashing police over the head with American flags. They still did not, they did not order any kind of lethal force to be deployed on that day. And the reason they did that, or the reason they avoided that, is because in general, that is how you inflame a situation, right? The more militarized you are, and the more you escalate, right, with a situation like that, the more the situation starts to get out of control. It's like a grease fire, right? You try to put it out with water and it goes all over the place, right? So, same thing with this. The smart way to handle these protests is to de-escalate. That is, generally what the LAPD, what Newsome and Karen Bass have seemed to be, advocating. And it's the opposite of what Trump and the feds are doing. They are very much, showing up as militarized as possible, provoking the public. So anyway, with that, chat, let's switch gears a little bit. And I want to show you this is an awesome channel, Internet Today. They've put together a timeline for us.
Miller
Boo.
and Homeland.
All right, so we got kind of a time. These guys are from LA. They've been to the protests, I think, several times. They're aware of what's actually going on in LA, what it's actually like in LA, and it's a little different than what you might have heard. So let's take a look here and see what they've got for us.
Well, by now you've seen the images and footage coming out of our city over the past couple of days, and we've been here living it. So apologies if our brains are a bit scrambled and we aren't able to hit every point or message in this video. But on Friday of last week, after White House Chief of Staff Stephen Miller
Boo.
and Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem ordered ICE agents to hit a quota of 3,000 people per day or risk losing their jobs, they will, of course, seek out intentionally the easiest possible targets.
Yeah, the nefarious criminals down at the Home Depot looking for day labor, and the psychopaths working in kitchens washing dishes. We got to get them out.
Not that they were actually going after violent criminals before this, as we've seen over the past few months. But yeah, ICE is detaining people who are sometimes here legally, who are here seeking asylum, or just are actual United States citizens.
I mean, a lot of these arrests have been for people at their hearings. They have followed every step they've been given. They've done everything by the book.
And they get changed up at the courthouse.
Yeah, it's, I don't...
Ashley Babbitt, yeah, that was her name.
Look at that and say, that person must be a criminal. The person that is going...
Through the process. Yeah, it's insane.
It's stupid. It doesn't make sense.
But last Friday in Los Angeles, where the Hispanic population dwarfs other races and where families and neighbors have lived here for decades, over hundreds of years, ICE descended on locations where day labor...
All right, Sandy Stutter, you fucked up the entire story about Ashley Babbitt. You said you'd be honest, but every word you said about Ashley was a lie. Listen, I will tell you something. If you are ever in an event in which the lives of Congresspeople have been threatened, and yes, they were walking down the halls chanting "Hang Mike Pence," right? And there are, Secret Service guarding the members of Congress, I would beseech you, do not break a window, try to crawl through there, because they're going to think that you're trying to kill somebody, right? When somebody shows up with zip ties, it kind of looks like you're trying to kidnap the legislature. When you're bitching about Donald Trump, who lost the election, not being, you're doing an election denial, and you're trying to stop the, confirmation of the new president. You're trying to stop the peaceful transfer of power. Then yeah, that's going to put your life in danger. Right, in any sort of situation, do not approach a politician in a situation where their life is already in danger, right? Where there's already been threats made, right? That'll get you like if you were at the Trump thing, right? At the last summer, right? If you're in Pennsylvania and somebody's taking pot shots at Trump, it's probably not a good time to, go up on the stage and try to approach him, get an autograph, right? It's very simple shit that I would hope you could understand. I would hope that you could understand why Ashley Babbitt is no longer with us, right? Because she did something very stupid, probably out of some half-cocked conspiracy theory. As far as who killed Ashley Babbitt, chat, it was Donald Trump. Who's responsible for her death? It was Donald Trump. Who warped her mind? Donald fucking Trump warped her mind. And that's why she's dead. So maybe listen a little bit less to demagogues, all right? If you want to survive.
Factory workers, students, line cooks, and cart vendors are found and attempted to detain as many people as possible, knowing full well that this city would fight back in massive numbers, and that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, also, this is not a place, there's a lot of fucked up shit everywhere, including California, but I would say that the sentiment here, especially in the city of Los Angeles, towards illegal immigrants,
is who cares?
It's just sort of, that's the way it is. Yep. Like, I don't think I've ever met even the most like hardcore.
What they're trying to say is that people in LA know undocumented people, and they don't think of them as illegals because people are not illegals. Acts like breaking into the Capitol building, yeah, acts can be illegal, but people are not. People are not illegal, right? And in fact, these people that, are called by a lot of people caught up in this Trump-inspired moral panic, they're, thought of as just like lawbreakers or dangerous or something like that. In real life, in Southern California, these people are integrated into society. So you're not just kicking an illegal out. You are ripping away a mother from her children. You are ripping away a father from his family. You are ripping away aunts and uncles. You are ripping away, coworkers, people that know these. When you know these people, it's a different thing. Even if you're a Trump voter, right? I don't know how many Trump voters I've talked to who were like, yeah, I'm in favor of the deportations. Those dangerous, violent lawbreakers need to be taken care of. But certainly Trump's not coming after my friends that are undocumented. No, he's probably going to leave them alone. Trump has a soft spot for hardworking people, whether they make all these assumptions that are contrary to what Trump's actually said. He's coming for everybody. And Chad, if you look for what he's done, he's not just going after illegals either, right? American citizens have been detained. American citizens have been deported, right? He's coming for everybody. And the key feature, right? You've had ICE agents be shown birth certificates. Here's my birth certificate, sir. I was born right here in the United States of America. Please let me go. No, I think it's fake, right? And they have to get lawyers and they have to do all kinds of shit to get themselves out of detention, right? It's out of control. It's out of control and it's expanding. And it is very much a situation of first they came for the undocumented. But that's not where it ends, chat. That's not where it ends, right? Trump's definition of the enemy within is ever expansive. Just as the Germans' definition of the degenerate, the person who is hurting German culture, was ever expansive, and way more people got caught up in that than just if you were Jewish. This is a feature, not a bug of fascism, right? Is that it declares its enemies, just few in number at first, and then just expands, and pushes more and more people out, and people thought they were cool with the Nazis, chat. You know how people say the Nazis were socialists? It's because it's right there in their name, National Socialists, right? Okay, so they must be socialists. Well, there was an element of the Nazi Party that was kind of left-wing, right? I mean, don't get me wrong, they hated communists. Like the people that fought the Nazis in the street, those were communists, right? They would talk about stuff like Judeo-Bolshevism, like imagining this secret handshake between Jewish people and the Soviet Union. That was Judeo-Bolshevism. But, there was an element within the Nazi Party itself that fashioned itself as being somewhat economically left-wing. These were called the Strasserites. And everything was well and good until one night called the Night of Long Knives. Hitler purged these socialists, right? Who I don't even think these guys were socialists. I call them Nazbols. National Bolsheviks is, it's some kind of bastardized, contrivance of, socialism was really popular at the time because people were sick of capitalism. That's why the Nazis incorporated socialist into their name. But yeah, the closest thing to socialist that exist in the Nazi Party were people that got purged and fucking murked in their sleep. They got stabbed to death, chat. So yeah, I mean, this is just an example of a group that thought that they were cool with the Nazis, thought they were cool with the fascists, and ended up at on the business end of those jackboots.
Conservatives I've ever met have not been nearly as psycho about this shit compared to people in like Texas or whatever.
Now, I want to be extremely clear here. I was at the Home Depot Friday morning in the immediate aftermath, like minutes after they left. I saw food carts left behind. I saw people still scattered, personal items left behind. And shockingly, it was weird to see just a bewildered group of Home Depot employees standing in front of the entrances and exits who just witnessed what looked like a full military intervention in their parking lot. All for a handful of folks who were there trying to find work for them.
I'll pause this so we can, let's just get the, hey, I'm a popular lady right now, okay? Thank you for subscribing. I'm a little overwhelmed. This channel's growing fast. Anyway, somebody in chat said Internet Today. Yeah, this is Internet Today. I watch them a lot, on my own time. I don't usually react to them because a lot of times they're covering the same stuff that I'm covering and I'll just cover it. But in this case, I think they put something really exceptional together, right? This is them putting together a timeline of the protest, telling you how it started, telling you why it started, and then going, in chronological order along, how things happened, what things were really like on the ground. These guys are from LA. A lot of what you're getting is from people that are just, they're finding a picture of a dude standing on a Waymo, wailing away at it with a skateboard. And, you got like 6 different angles of him to make it look like there's 6 different Waymos getting destroyed. In other words, they're taking the most sensationalistic part of of what's happening and portraying it as this is the protests, right? If you're in favor of the protests, if you're in favor of the protesters, then you're in favor of burning Waymos. And I would not recommend that you do. I would not recommend that you light any sort of electronic. I would not recommend you light any sort of electric vehicle on fire, chat. Those lithium batteries, those, that's a special type of combustion that goes on there. That's really dangerous stuff. But if you watch Fox News, if you watch, a lot of stuff, right, you're getting that as your image of what the protest is. I'd rather listen to people that live there, that understand what's going on, that are in touch with, people in LA and understand how this actually happened. So luckily we have Internet Today to do that for us. And we're going to take a look.
For the day. Not the drug dealers, quote unquote, or violent criminals that the administration is telling you that they're going after.
Yeah, the president
is lying.
He's lying. He's lying. He's telling lies.
Yes.
Yes, papa. So by Friday night, organizers brought around 1,000 people together to march around the federal building in downtown peacefully. And there's always going to be people who take things a little bit too far, but what is considered too far when people's families are being ripped apart, when your loved ones don't come home, when you see your parents or your neighbors being taken off the streets or out of their workplace by masked men and loaded into nondescript vans, never knowing if or when you'll ever see them again? That seems violent to me.
Yeah.
Now, sure, people tagged the buildings. It will get painted over. There is a paint for that.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, people blocked loading docks for a few minutes and got pepper sprayed and tear gassed for their troubles. But you know what was happening in the background? You could hear the sounds of people who were detained, banging on the detention center.
Big Fella says Fox News isn't valuable because they're not close enough to LA. No, Fox News is very valuable. Fox News is where I get a lot of laughs from. But if you're relying on Fox News for the facts, you're going to be disappointed because Fox News has an agenda that they are pushing. And it's, look, there's multiple things going on. There's the perverse incentives of the algorithm, right? If it bleeds, it leads. If something is violent, dangerous, scary, on fire, right, that's going to get more clicks, that's going to get more views than other things. But then with Fox News, it's also that they have a vested interest in making you think that what's going on is people in LA randomly losing their shit, or that there's a lot of lawlessness there, or that there's the immigrants are criminals and that's why this is happening. And instead, I'd rather go step by step through how did this actually start? What's the order of events? What happened first? what happened next, and maybe we can figure out why we're at this place right now instead of just relying on fucking viral 30-second clips of, like I said, some dude wailing away on a Waymo with a skateboard before torching it, which, like I said, that's dangerous shit. Okay. That's it's dangerous to the to anybody who's around you if you're lighting an electric vehicle on fire.
Windows, and you could see the reflections of their personal mirrors and lights flashing in their tiny sliver of windows. And these are people who just witnessed blacked out SUVs running people over, who just witnessed a local union leader, David Huerta, get beaten and detained for opposing a raid. So yeah, the tensions were high, and it was not the crowd who upped the tension. No. People who witnessed as lawyers and local politicians were denied their rights to enter that federal building, to monitor what was going on, or to even speak to anyone who was detained. And after a few hours, everything was calm. Yes. It didn't turn into a riot. No. The last remaining protesters went home, some of them to homes without their loved ones, to neighborhoods that had been traumatized from the events of earlier. But it was calm and peaceful once again, until Saturday morning, when ICE once again descended on a Home Depot in the city of Paramount, about 20 or so miles south of downtown LA.
So on Saturday, a small but incredibly brave amount of people stood up against dozens of ICE agents and eventually cops in riot gear that steadily tear-gassed everyone for hours on end while the community...
Casey Hitchcock says, wow, this no comment chick should stop commenting. Casey...
But now there are freaking communists invading.
That'd be a little too on the nose, right? That'd be a little too on the nose. Casey Hitchcock
stood their ground, stood strong, and created blockades with shopping carts and stuff like that. They took pepper balls and canisters to their bodies. I mean, we need to be clear again. These were average folks facing off against militarized police and federal agents with a seemingly unlimited supply of tactical...
So this is what went on, right? Where did the tear gas come from? Where did the pepper ball... when did that start getting used? This was the federal law enforcement authorities. Now, I want you to pay attention to a few things, right? The difference between the tactics of the federal law enforcement versus the local law enforcement, right? We're talking about ICE. We're talking about Department of Homeland Security, DSI. I don't even know what that is, but now they've got cops apparently. I think they drafted some FBI. I mean, Trump's pulled a whole bunch of people who have jobs doing very different things into the duties of helping ICE out with their grim task of fulfilling Stephen Miller's racist dreams of this, mass deportation. And so, from the feds, you're seeing escalatory violence, almost as if they want a protest and they want this protest to escalate. They want the protest to spread. They want scenes of disorder. They want things getting lit on fire. They want any excuse they can have for Trump to clamp down. And then you've got the local law enforcement, that being the LAPD, the sheriff's deputy, and as far as the National Guard and the Marines, understand that right now they're just being used to guard federal buildings. They're not really allowed to do any kind of crowd control or anything like that. They're sort of limited to protecting federal property and protecting federal employees, right? And so for that reason, they're not doing a lot. We saw some of them earlier. They looked bored as fuck. They also came in, thanks to Trump, with no provisions for food, water, fuel, right? None of this stuff was thought of. None of this stuff was taken. Hegseth was just like, yeah, get them in there, right? And he didn't realize they're people and they need to eat and they need to drink and they need a place to sleep. You know where they're sleeping? They're sleeping in like hallways of federal buildings, right? I saw this picture. Let me see if I can bring it back for you. It was on the thumbnail yesterday. I'll see if I can grab this for you. I want you to see what kind of accommodations that Trump had ready for the men and women of our armed forces. All right, here we go. This is what we're dealing with, chat. This is how they're sleeping. This is what Trump thinks of soldiers, right? He called them losers. He's using and abusing them. This is a real picture of how the National Guard that Trump called in is sleeping.
But now there are freaking communist invading radicals.
And because these troops have been federalized, because they are under control of the president and not the governor or the mayor or anybody else, they are his responsibility. And he and his cabinet, he and his administration were supposed to take care of shit like this, not leave them in this. This is how they're sleeping. They're using like each other as pillows, like, right? They don't even have room.
But now there are freaking communist invading radicals.
They're sleeping on the floor and there's not even enough floor, right? So, I mean, that's the situation that we're at right now. But yeah, I just want you to keep in mind the difference between the federal law enforcement and the state and local. Not that it's great. We're talking about the LAPD here. They've got a history of racism. I said this yesterday. I just want to rehash this really quick. O.J. Simpson, famous murderer, a lot of people think, although he was never convicted, there's a reason he wasn't convicted. And it's because one of the cops involved in the investigation was found to be an actual white supremacist, was involved in white supremacist extremist groups, right? And so because of that, he was a key figure in the O.J. Simpson case. His testimony was undermined by the fact that dude is a fucking Nazi. And for, largely for that reason, OJ got off, right?
Gear. And they stood their ground for hours in order to protect people who were simply trying to find a day's work. And there were also similar protests and standoffs.
Hey, Eric V, don't talk to me about puberty blockers until you've gone through puberty.
Resulting in a now infamous photo of police officers guarding a gigantic donut.
We must protect this donut.
The donut.
Were there small fire set? Sure.
Oh my God, let's get 20 fucking angles of that fire.
Yeah, was there a chaotic scene at some points? Sure. But these were relatively small protests at very specific locations where ICE agents were conducting raids. And because of these small protests and standoffs, which took up maybe a few blocks radius each, the Trump administration federalized and activated the National Guard, bypassing any approval from local officials or the governor, which is something that hadn't been done for 60 years. And when it was done 60 years ago, it was during the march from Selma to Montgomery, Alabama. It was an insane overreaction and an appalling show of force, and clearly part of a plan that was intentional from the start. Bernie Sanders put it in the simplest possible terms this past weekend. Trump's authoritarianism in real time.
Okay, I gotta say, they're gonna glaze up Bernie a little bit here. Yeah, I think this tweet is on point, but that is not what everybody's talking about on Twitter right now. Unfortunately, look, I like Bernie. He's not perfect, and nobody is, but a lot of people were expecting better from Bernie than this. Let's see. I don't even know if he's deleted the tweet yet. Yeah, I think it's this one. All right, so that tweet's pretty good. Bernie tweeted that earlier. This is a more recent tweet. Oh, actually from yesterday, that he put out. Dr. King defeated racist government officials and ended segregation through disciplined, nonviolent resistance. Defeating Trumpism, oligarchy, and authoritarianism requires the same level of discipline. Violent protests are counterproductive and play right into the Trump's playbook. You know what plays right into Trump's playbook? Is when you take the actions of, people that are out on a Saturday night for a thrill and they know the police are involved in quashing a protest, so they know that they can, do some pretty extreme shit and not face any consequences for it. Lumping those people in with the protesters, that, Bernie, that is how you play right into Trump's playbook. So yeah, and unfortunately, a unforced error from the Burninator here. Mike from PA, what violence are you talking about exactly? Damaging self-driving cars burned by who knows who? I'm legitimately baffled by this post. Yeah, Bernie, Karen Bass, Gavin Newsome, a lot of these Democratic politicians. We got the serfs here talking about Martin Luther King. He was assassinated, leading to protests in over 100 cities, which then led to Congress passing the Fair Housing Act, Civil Rights Act in 1968 after his death. So yeah, a lot of people kind of lighting up Bernie on this. In fact, I think we even have, do we have a Hassan? Let's see if we can find this here. I'm sorry. I know Twitter's boring, everybody, but just bear with me for just a second. Me when I whitewash history. Oh, here we go. Yeah, this is Hassan's tweet. So Hassan responds to Bernie saying, "You were literally there at the He was. He's not even kidding. That's not an exaggeration. Bernie was literally there. That's how old Bernie is, right? In fact, that's a picture of Bernie down there, I think. Young Bernie Sanders down there. You were literally there at the nonviolent protest that everyone considered to be violent and unpopular." That's true. Martin Luther King had a very low approval rating. Most Americans did not like Martin Luther King while he was alive.
But now there are freaking
most people regarded Martin Luther King as a troublemaker and associated him with the same kind of violence that that today's protesters are being associated with, right? Considered to be violent and unpopular, so I have no idea what this statement does other than lean into the hysteria that gives Trump enough momentum to mobilize the Marines on U.S. soil illegally. All right, so here's our picture of young Bernie Sanders, and then... all right, I don't know how much of this is showing up. Hopefully enough of it. That is MLK in a political cartoon from the 60s, I'm guessing. Yeah, it must be. So they're making fun of MLK, right? This is the real press. This is how the press, this is how the newspaper, this is how the media looked at MLK while he was doing his actions, right? I plan to lead another nonviolent march tomorrow. Right. So, and the reporter's like, "Oh, it doesn't look very nonviolent to me, Mr. King. Oh, it looks like you're torching the whole neighborhood here. Oh, I don't know about that." And of course, he's doing the Morty voice. Right. And here we have, do you approve or disapprove of what the Freedom Riders? Right. That was the one of the movements that he was involved in. Freedom. They're asking about the Freedom Riders and the sit-ins. And this was, Bernie Sanders himself, actually. You can't see it here. But Bernie Sanders himself, I believe, was a Freedom Rider. So question, do you approve or disapprove of what the Freedom Riders are doing, right? 22% approve, 61% disapprove. Do you think the sit-ins at lunch counters on at freedom buses and other demonstrations by Black people will hurt or help Black people's chances of being integrated into the South? Help, 28. Hurt, 57. March on Washington, 63. What are your feelings about the proposed mass civil rights rally in Washington? Favorable, 23%. Unfavorable, 60%. Yeah, so it's just absolutely ridiculous. And I don't know. I feel I haven't heard Bernie's response. He did make a video responding to the protests in general. Maybe we'll look at that in a second if we get a chance. I just wanted to show you, just so you don't think I'm glazing up Bernie Sanders. This was a pretty good tweet. This was a pretty concise tweet. In fact, I used this tweet on my thumbnail because I thought it was so good in describing how this whole thing worked. You conduct massive illegal raids. You provoke a counter response by ripping people out of their community. And then you declare a state of emergency and you call in the troops. That's what Trump's game plan has been.
Massive illegal raids, provoke a counter response, declare a state of emergency, call in the troops. Now, California Governor Gavin Newsome also warned against Trump sending in the National Guard, saying in a statement on Saturday,
The federal government is moving to take over the California National Guard and deploy 2,000 soldiers. That move is purposefully inflammatory and will only escalate tensions. LA authorities are able to access law enforcement assistance at a moment's notice. We are in close coordination with the city and county, and there is currently no unmet need. The Guard has been admirably serving LA throughout recovery. This is the wrong mission and will erode public trust.
And the recovery he's talking about is the massive fires in Altadena and the Palisades.
Right. And this also coincides with public statements from...
Van Wolf says the term glazing up people tells me people are cowardly or insecure about speaking good about other people. Why does it matter? Why are we spreading insecurity like this? Because, Van Wolf, much like myself, Bernie Sanders is a complicated historical figure. I have not always been based. Oh my God, chat. I have not always had the right opinion. And I wouldn't want to represent it to you any other way. And just like Bernie sometimes gets it wrong. And when the thing that is on everybody's mind is his ridiculous train wreck of a tweet from today, I don't want to be, showing his base tweet from yesterday, giving you the impression that I think that everything that Bernie Sanders does is awesome, right? We're all mixed bags.
The mayor of LA, who reiterated that local officials and police are more than capable of handling any protests. I mean, it's literally been crazier and more chaotic in any city in the country when a sports team wins a championship, including here in LA when the Dodgers won the World Series last year, or when the Lakers won a very long time ago.
Yeah.
And again, this was the first time in 60 years since Lyndon B. Johnson was president and the National Guard was federalized and ordered to go to an American city. And of course, these are the softest possible statements and positions from these politicians, but they have repeatedly made it clear that the National Guard is not needed. And as you'll see by the time this video goes up, the Marines have been called in as well.
I mean, yeah, and the statements they're soft statements from politicians, but they do keep reiterating that everyone in the city and the communities have a right to protest. That is your First Amendment right.
Yeah. And also just nothing that has happened warrants this kind of response.
Absolutely
whatsoever.
not.
Like, I would, at this point, I mean, he deployed this shit after less than 24 hours.
When literally nothing was happening.
Nothing had happened. And listen, we were all there 5 years ago watching the George Floyd protests. Like, that shit, I mean, that went a lot further than anything that's happened in LA
this was
so far.
Very clearly pre-planned.
There's been property damage, but like cars. It's been, and not personal cars.
Waymos.
Google cars. I think Google will be fine. Also, they're covered in cameras, and they're giving me some cop vibes.
We'll get to that, but yeah, let's not get ahead of ourselves because we've only talked about Friday and part of Saturday so far.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, late on Saturday afternoon, I rode my bike over to the federal building to check things out, and there was a relatively small group of protesters standing outside of that building, making their voices heard and yelling at vehicles that were showing up to the on-ramp area of that federal building, presumably with agents and detainees inside. Again, I was there. No one threw anything at these cars. And by the way, they just got out of the way when the cars showed up.
Yeah.
Everyone was just yelling and saying, boo.
You are, in fact, allowed to yell at federal agents. There's no law against it.
Yeah, when the car showed up, people got out of the way. And still, regardless of that, officers armed with less than lethal rounds marched out to intimidate the very small crowd of maybe like 24 people with an outrageous show of force. Here is video that I literally took myself, and apologies for it being vertical, but that's what's shared on social media these days. I give up. It's recorded in vertical.
It's also just easier to hold.
Yeah. Here you go. And I do want to add here that while Trump has been activating the National Guard and now the Marines, the majority of what you've seen on TV or on social media has taken place in a 2-block radius downtown. And for context, about a block away from where this is all happening is Little Tokyo and the Arts District. If you walked away from these protests to Little Tokyo, literally a block away, you would have absolutely no idea that anything was happening at all.
Yeah, on Sunday, I walked to the train to go home, and they had helpfully shut down all the fucking subway stations in downtown. So I'm like, okay, I have to walk like a mile outside of this and call a fucking Uber. But yeah, I literally got 2 blocks away from where there were like 10,000 people. And there was like a little farmer's market where people there literally, they could have walked 5 feet and looked around the corner and seen the protest, but they seemed completely oblivious.
People were
to
having
any of
brunch
this happening.
On Saturday, while this was happening. I mean, it was a much smaller crowd, but I literally stopped in Little Tokyo for a snack before heading home. It was just like any normal weekend there. Saturday night was, of course, also peaceful, even downtown. And despite the National Guard having not even yet arrived, Trump was already doing victory laps online and posting about how the National Guard had taken back control of the city. Bitch, they weren't even there yet. Nothing was happening.
That was very funny.
I was
Taking
sitting
credit
there
for doing nothing.
and I was just there. There was no National Guard and there was no need for a National Guard.
So I want you to understand what's being said here, and that's that you're witnessing theater, right? Trump is not he's not Trump is a reality star. All right, he doesn't know government, he doesn't know much of anything, but he does know television. He's had actually a few different he started out doing real estate. He ended up going belly up. His real estate shit did not work out for him, and he declared bankruptcy. Then he tried his hand at casinos. Now, casinos are pretty easy, right? Because I don't know if you know this, but the house always wins. If you are the house, if you are the casino, it is pretty easy to earn money off of people gambling because, people lose their shit in Las Vegas. He was actually in Atlantic City, but he ended up going belly up as a casino as well. So, real estate didn't work for him. Casinos didn't work for him. What finally worked for him was reality television, right? He seems to have a knack for that. He seems to have a knack for television, right? So, as a television guy, Trump tries to create alternate realities and present them to you as real life. And this is just one example of that, right? So if you if you provoke a community into protesting and then you shoot tear gas at those protesters, you use, police, you use almost like military tactics against these protesters, and you escalate things to a certain point, you get, your requisite shot of a dumpster fire in the middle of the intersection, and then you use that to say, oh, LA is out of control, Karen Bass can't handle it, Gavin Newsome can't handle it, oh, it's out of control, oh, better send in the National Guard. And then you say, yep, look, National Guard cleared it up. There we go. We got, right, National Guard, you're doing a good job. The only thing that Trump fucked up on here, right, because this is a pretty good narrative that he created. It's pretty believable, right? He's storytelling, essentially.
But now there are freaking communists invading.
The thing that he fucked up on was praising the National Guard before they even got there. Right? And so, I mean, you can tell what he's doing now, right? You got a little, look, we got a little glimpse behind the curtain, and then Trump pulled the curtain. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain, folks. It's a riot. It's out of control. Gavin Newsome and Karen Bass, they're very bad at governing California, but don't worry, I will save you. I will send in the National Guard. I mean, you can tell that he's creating a narrative here, can't you? When he praises the National Guard for their actions, and they're not even in the city yet, right? That's the tell right there that he's presenting a narrative. You're watching reality television and you're acting as if it's real life. When LA's a real place, people actually live there, and you can go there and check and verify yourself. You can watch these 8-hour live streams on AP and see exactly what's going on in the protest for the entirety of the protest. And you can see that the majority of the protest is actually, as I said yesterday, kind of boring. I'm not trying to dissuade you from going to a protest. If you want to go to a protest, go to a protest. Be safe, protect yourself at all times. Stay away from anybody trying to light electric vehicles on fire. But again, this is something that happened in a limited number of cases and is being portrayed to you as if it's all over LA. The entire city of LA is on fire, when in reality, we're talking about a very small part of Paramount, like one little section of Compton, where this is going on, and even then, the majority of the protests are peaceful.
I was one of the only people there because the stuff that was happening was in Paramount and Compton. It was wild.
I just hope the guardsmen and I guess the Marines now and I assume a lot of them are aware of just how stupid this all is.
Yeah.
How just ridiculous this is. And you would hope how unconstitutional it is.
Yeah.
Anyway, then came Sunday. And local organizers put out a call for communities to meet for a peaceful protest and march at City Hall downtown. Both of us and a handful of friends took the train down there to march in solidarity with our community, a community that I have known my entire life and one that Ricky has been a part of for 2 decades.
Yeah.
These are our friends, neighbors, local businesses, and their families and friends who are affected by this. We live in one of the hot spots for this ICE activity, and we can attest to the fact that federal agents and military vehicles tearing down our streets are quite literally terrorizing these communities. And we've never felt unsafe in our neighborhoods until the feds showed up.
And I'm sure that's the case for a lot of people in these communities.
Yeah, I mean,
like if you cut back to like Wednesday, normal shit going on in LA.
Like, even, listen, this was already, like, pissing me off when they were snatching people up. But, like, now the fucking army is invading my city for no fucking reason. And that alone, just on principle, is unacceptable.
Yeah.
I will not accept it. And it seems like that's the vibe.
Yeah.
Because when we were walking around on Sunday, every car that we were inconveniencing by blocking off the street,
they were hanging out the windows, woo,
bashing that horn, cheering us on. I did not see one fucking person inconvenienced by this protest who was actually mad about it.
That's why it seems like they chose LA, because they knew the city would fight back, because LA has a long history of that.
Anyway, everything in our city and our communities, it was all going fine. It was completely normal and peaceful until Friday morning when ICE showed up. And then especially on Sunday when it was obvious that the National Guard was rolling in. But back to the march. So we gathered at City Hall for an hour of speeches from local organizers, chants from the crowd, which had grown to well over 1,000 people by the time we marched towards the federal building.
And it continued to grow.
It kept getting
wild.
bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of people there who clearly...
Even one of those Labubus was there.
Yeah, I mean, the vibe was that this was a lot of people who don't normally do this kind of shit. They don't come out for protests, but like, it's just like,
they felt the urge to do so.
Because, yeah, I mean, like, it's your time to stand and be counted.
It's now.
And this shit is just unacceptable and goes against our way of life here.
And the Constitution.
Anyway, everything was peaceful and until we turned the corner towards the federal building, where we were immediately and without warning.
Yep.
Immediately met with a barrage of tear gas canisters, rubber bullets, and pepper balls, which also caused a very tense situation for a brief moment, where, you know,
crowd crush happened.
You instinctively, when that shit starts going off, you turn the other way, and there was
the march behind us. We were closer
people
to the
were
front.
Still coming in, and
there was just a crush situation.
There was about 5 seconds where it was like, oh, this is how that happens. But luckily, the crowd had like really good fucking discipline.
Yeah, we started everyone started the chant like "Stay calm, keep moving," and that really, really helped. But yes, I remember at one point looking back and seeing the shrapnel of what I assume was a tear gas canister flying through the air.
Yeah. Again, we had literally just gotten there. Nothing had happened.
Turned to the corner, and we're met with that.
Anyway, yeah, so the crowd then circled around and marched over to the freeway, where a few dozen people walked onto the 101, where they were met with, again, less than lethal ammunition.
Quote unquote less than lethal.
From the California Highway Patrol.
And it's important to point out that less than lethal ammunition has, in fact, killed people before.
Yeah, no, if you take one of those to the head.
Or the chest.
Yeah, it can stop your heart. It can put you in a coma. It can take out your eye.
A lot of people suffered a lot of injuries. I mean, people were shot with rubber bullets and beanbags all over their bodies, including in the head. one man was trampled multiple times by police on horseback.
That's some real fucked up shit.
Yeah,
that is a crime.
In the video, you can see one cop telling him to leave after he'd been trampled once, which he does. But then another cop grabs him and throws him back onto the ground before beating him with a stick and having another horse trample over him.
Which is, I mean, listen, it's fairly minor, but this is also animal abuse.
Yeah.
Like, those horses didn't sign up for that shit.
No. And at one point in a video that has already spread wildly online, a reporter for a conservative Australian news outlet was shot by a rubber bullet from, I don't know, maybe 15
I didn't even realize this lady, was she Sky News?
or 20.
We know some conservative Australian networks, chat. They're some of the funniest conservatives to watch. Lefties are losing it.
And not like she wasn't standing behind, you know, this was not a mistake.
No,
this was
this
very
was not
intentional.
crossfire. In the footage, you can see the officer taking aim and shooting her while she's simply standing on camera reporting what's going on. The officer started surrounding protesters, which is, it always creates a chaotic situation.
Called kettling. They're doing it on, they're trying to create a chaotic situation.
And when faced with everything that we've just spoken about, rubber bullets, the constant choking from never-ending clouds of tear gas, pepper spray from multiple angles, horses fucking trampling people, cops beating protesters with sticks, and of course, just the fact that this was all reaction to what started as a peaceful protest from a community that was justifiably pissed off that federal agents were detaining hardworking...
She's not Sky News, but she's it's still a conservative channel.
...members of their community, and that the Trump administration was intentionally elevating tensions. Yeah, shit did get real intense really quick.
Yeah, I mean, listen, even if you show up looking to be peaceful, after a few hours of tear gas and rubber bullets being fired after you, you might change your mind about how peaceful you want to be, and that's perfectly understandable.
And also being corralled into a zone that you don't know how to leave. Even we made it back to an intersection where we were able to spread out a little bit, but for a moment we were caught directly between the federal building and the corner of Alameda there with, I don't know, a couple thousand people behind us and officers pushing this way or National Guard pushing this way. So yeah, it was a very intense situation. But later in the evening, multiple Waymos were set on fire. People threw rocks at CHP cars. They kicked back tear gas canisters. I mean, look, you can fix a windshield. You can paint over graffiti. A dumpster fire is a dumpster fire. But human beings were going home to broken families with broken skulls, battered bodies, mental trauma, and more after what started as a peaceful protest.
Yeah, if you're going to talk about violence, you have to acknowledge
the violence against the protesters.
The violence that kicked this all off.
Yeah.
And which I would say is much
worse than
worse. Yeah. Anyway, things got more intense on Sunday night. We left way before nightfall, but not before the city had closed off public transportation out of the area, which was obviously really frustrating.
Yo, Narwhal by Nature, thank you for the 5 gifted memberships. Breaky Time, you just got weaseled. Jesse, Alexandra, you just got weasels. Maybe not really, you just got weaseled. Jan, you just got weasels. Goddess Code, you just got weaseled, and that's a good thing.
Made it difficult to even leave.
Yeah.
I thought you wanted us to leave.
I went to the Little Tokyo Station. That was completely barred off. Walked all the way to the Broadway station. Was down there for like 10 minutes before the intercom came over and like, we're stopping all trains going anywhere.
We're running out of time on the butterfly goal.
I considered
2 minutes left. We are 6 out of 10.
Would have had to walk
back
past
through
the
everything.
federal building to get there.
Sorry, chat. I'm just letting people know. I should have said this earlier, all right? We got a goal to put a butterfly in my hair. If we get 10 super chats in the next 2.5 minutes, we do that, but it is 2.5 minutes. I'm sorry. I should have told you earlier. It's my fault, chat, if we don't get hit the butterfly goal today.
Which was not possible. So
yep. But regarding Sunday night, it was obviously a bit odd that when faced with a peaceful daytime protest, officers were very quick to launch tear gas and rubber bullets at the crowd. But once the sun went down and a significantly smaller crowd were setting dumpsters on fire and launching fireworks, dozens upon dozens of officers seemed pretty damn content to just sit there and watch as the news cameras rolled and gathered footage that would absolutely be used by outlets and the administration to paint LA as a total fucking war zone.
So we had a question earlier in chat. That's why I've been quiet for a little bit, because I do read your chats. Even you in Shorts chats, even if you don't like me or don't agree with me, I read your chats. And somebody was asking, well, why are these Bernie, they read Bernie's tweet saying that illegal ICE raids, and they're like, well, why are they illegal? It doesn't seem like they should be illegal to me, right? So, yeah, I looked it up, and what is illegal is the fact that these people are not being given due process. right? And this should matter to you too. Even if you were born in the United States, even if you have United States citizenship and you think it's unquestionable, right? Again, there are people in this country who have been made illegal by acts of the Trump administration. Trump changing, the law, making executive orders has switched people's status from being legal to being illegal. But I think what is, I think what Bernie might have been talking about was the lack of due process that people are getting when they're swept up in the raid. So maybe not so much that the raid itself is illegal, although it is traumatic. And like I said, you're pulling people's family members, you're pulling people's friends, you're pulling people, in other words, that are integrated into the community. They're not some like secret illegal living in the shadows or some shit like that. They're part of the community. You're pulling these people out of the out of their lives, out of their communities, and yeah, people are upset by it. But the thing that's illegal is the deprivation of due process. So in other words, instead of these people going in front of a judge, what Trump is doing is just sweeping them up and deporting them without a trial. And chat, this is bad, because even if you're a United States citizen, how do you prove that you're a United States citizen? Because people who are citizens, people who have birth certificates, born in the United States, have been swept up in these raids before, and they have been disbelieved. ICE has torn up their paperwork and said, nah, that's bullshit. We're still deporting you, right? The only way that you can prove that you're a citizen, the only way that you could prove that you're not a criminal, is if you get due process. The Trump administration is bypassing this. They are in violation of multiple court orders on that. That's what's illegal. As far as I'm concerned, if Bernie knows something more about the raids themselves being conducted in an illegal way, I guess that's possible. I don't know that. That's not what I'm claiming, but I think what Bernie was trying to say, if I'm gonna guess, is he's talking about the processing of the people swept up in the ICE raids is illegal.
Again, if you weren't in this very specific section of downtown LA, you would have had no idea, zero idea that anything was happening in the city. And that's proven by the fact that all over the city, people were still posting Instagram stories of themselves at brunch and dinner, at the beach, at parties, and of course, celebrating Pride Month at countless events across town.
You really wouldn't know any of this was going on unless you were right there.
The KCAL had 2 angles of like a tiny pallet on fire.
Yeah, and they kept going, like, let's check in on that pallet again.
Yeah.
Oh, those
Meanwhile,
flames.
there was an entire row of motorcycle cops and police cruisers.
But listening to Bernie Sanders, are you serious? Look, I already told you the criticism I have for Bernie. Yeah, I'm going to listen to him. And sometimes I'm going to disagree with him, like I did about this latest tweet. All right? I don't know who you think you're talking to, but maybe you should listen a little bit better.
Just sitting there watching.
Yeah, and like, again, you compare any of the footage from Sunday night to when the Dodgers win, when the Lakers win,
or when
no comparison.
When any Philly team wins,
yeah,
or Boston team wins. It's like
doesn't even rise to that level.
So again, this is not LA is a war.
Yeah, see, you're just wrong, blue collar. They're literally not having due process, right? They've been deported to fucking gulags in El Salvador. This is documented. That people have been deported to gulags in El Salvador without even as much as going in front of a judge. Yes, they are bypassing due process. And yes, that means they can do it to you too. Because if you never see a judge, you can't prove you're an American citizen. All you got to do is be on the wrong side of Trump. And as we've seen, even Elon Musk has managed to do that as well, right? This is about Trump taking out his vengeance against his perceived enemies. And it's waking a lot of people up. A lot of people that thought that deportation meant violent criminals, right? They bought into his lies. They bought into his narrative that there's an epidemic of violent crime that's just not showing up in the statistics, because the statistics have a liberal bias somehow. That there's an epidemic of violent crime being conducted by undocumented people, even though when we look at the rates of crime between undocumented and documented, we see that actually U.S. citizens commit crimes at a higher rate. Kind of makes sense, though, right? If you're in the country without the proper paperwork, you'd kind of want to keep your head down. Committing a crime doesn't sound like a good idea. So please do the smell test. When Trump says something, don't just be like, yum, 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 racism, I love it, right? Take a sniff of what he's feeding you and realize that it is bullshit and that you are being used and that fascist jackboot can turn against you just as easily.
War zone, because the president is lying to you. And regarding those Waymo fires, which seems to have totally dominated a lot of the reporting from Sunday.
Oh, the humanity.
We would like to quote from Taylor Lorenz in UserMag. She was actually on.
Schmegley says CCOT has never released a prisoner. They did, though. They released one. But yeah, in general, they do not release a prisoner. Yeah, in other words, chat, there's no due process, and you just get warehoused. You get warehoused in this fucking hellhole in El Salvador.
Conducting interviews while this was taking place, and also, of course, references a recent article from 404.
Citizens get due process, says Nameless. Nameless, how do you prove you're a citizen if you don't get due process? How do you prove you're a citizen? You said citizens get due process. Do you think there's like a barcode on your ass that they fucking scan? Do you think that's what happens when you get taken up in an ICE raid? They scan your ass for the barcode. This one's a citizen. Let him go. No, they fucking deport your ass, Nameless. They deport your nameless ass to El Salvador. All right? And you don't leave that prison except in a goddamn body bag.
For media, who reported that local law enforcement are able to easily access Waymo cameras to spy on people. So having Waymos roll up to a protest is like having a full 360-degree surveillance system just sitting there. And we should also state that her reporting from this video and elsewhere is just that. We're reporting on what happened. And in her piece, she's talking with people nearby about why they think people torched the Waymos. Which, by the way, Waymos don't have feelings. They are cars, not human beings.
But in the Cars movies, the cars do have.
This is one that I kind of bought into a little bit, right? With the Waymo thing. I heard a story that people were using the app to summon the Waymos to the protest area, and then they were lighting them on fire. And it's a pretty good story. And so I just was like, I guess they're doing that, right? It turns out maybe not.
Yeah. So what about that?
Also, like why they all showed up. I saw many people like, oh, they're intentionally calling Waymos to do this. And I guarantee
they're just dumb. They're just dumb cars.
I guarantee you that some dude in like Little Tokyo or off Broadway was like, my Waymo got canceled. Well, I'll just order another one.
They did not program these vehicles to like have the social cues to understand
that a protest
when
is happening.
Civil unrest is happening. And
I'm sure they got a lot of useful data out of this stuff.
I'd like to think so.
Here's Taylor with her outlet UserMag. Links to full reporting are always down in the description.
For the past 24 hours on X, tech people, right-wing figures, and the media have been posting about Waymos being set on fire in downtown Los Angeles. The Waymos were burned during this weekend's protests against ICE. I saw them.
Somebody in Shorts chat, I missed your name. Sorry for not giving you the credit for this, but mentioned that that Kilmar Abrejo Garcia has been brought back from the El Salvador hellhole, despite the fact that the Trump administration said that there was no way to make that happen. In getting ahead of maybe the Supreme Court finding them in contempt, they did bring him back. They put a bunch of what looks like fake charges against him. But again, we'll see, chat. We'll see. What I care about is him getting his day in court. Although I gotta say, with a high-profile case like his, it's going to be hard to get a fair trial by jury, given how tainted the jury pool is, given how politicized his abduction was.
Burning and documented it on X and spoke to a couple people on the ground about it. In April, 404 Media revealed that the LAPD was publishing crime footage it got from a Waymo driverless car in an effort to identify a suspect. As 404 reported, the proliferation of Waymo cars also means the proliferation of roving surveillance cameras. LAPD has shown an interest in obtaining footage.
I want to point something out, all right? When's the last time we saw electric vehicles on fire? Anybody remember? When's the last time we saw electric vehicles being torched? Anybody remember? I'm waiting for we're on delay a little bit. I just want to see if anybody in chat remembers. When's the last time? It's a recent time where electric vehicles were burned. Tesla, yes, Tesla. Look, here's what I'm saying. I mean, I don't know who's burning these Waymos. Like I said, this is dangerous, all right? If you're, if you're in any kind of protest and, somebody's, setting a car on fire in general, but especially an electric vehicle, please get the fuck out of there, because those batteries can explode, and those fires from those batteries are not normal fires, right? That's some dangerous shit, right? But it seems like the common thread, and I'm not sure why people are burning Waymos either. I'm trying to figure that out myself. But if I was to guess, the common thread that I see is the techno aristocracy, right? Waymos are, I think Google owned. Tesla, obviously Elon owned. It kind of seems to me like people fucking hate tech bros. Fucking hate their guts, and especially hate their cars. But anyway, yeah, everything's computer.
Vehicles that operate in the city. Last year, we reported on a case in which the LAPD obtained footage from an autonomous food delivery robot to investigate a
Good night, Fendus stuff.
crime. When I asked a few protesters on the ground yesterday why they thought the Waymos were burning, they told me that the cars spy on people and could be recording protest footage. We still don't know who exactly set fire to the cars or why, but it's clear that more people are perceiving Waymos as an extension of the police surveillance infrastructure.
And look, I'm sure you all saw what happened Sunday night. But again, this was taking place in one area of downtown LA with the rest of the city operating as normal.
Was it more than like 2 or 3 Waymos even total?
I think it was like 4. But
okay, well, like based on the amount of angles and the amount of times that they cut to that, even on like local footage, you would think that hundreds of Waymos throughout the city of Los Angeles had been set on fire.
But specifically talking about after dark, it was maybe throughout the entire downtown area, dozens. And in the specific areas that a lot of the stuff was taking place, a dozen people or more. It was a very small crowd of people who might not even have been there to protest and might have just seen an advantageous situation.
Yeah. But no, they're saying the reason that they were on the scene when this happened. They were asking somebody why they think the Waymos were targeted, and the answer they gave was that these and they do, right? The cars have a ton of cameras in them. I don't know if it's for their automatic driving system, or if it's just to document what happens around the car, or if it's if it gets damaged or something like that, right? But we have had incidents, I guess, where the law enforcement has gone after those videos from Waymos. So I think people are kind of perceiving these as a roving security camera, right? And in a protest, roving security camera, I guess, kind of looks like a target to people.
They got that footage, didn't they? So it was very bizarre knowing that was happening, while at the same time you could see people last night going about their normal nights, enjoying concerts, movie screenings, Pride events.
We were playing trivia at a bar.
Yeah. Went home, showered, went and played some trivia with friends to cool down.
You shouldn't be snacking. You're already chunky. Okay, Jen, not chunky enough, apparently.
So again, the city is not a war zone. There is and has been no need for sending in the military. But on Monday, after another day of ICE raids on local restaurants, schools, and home improvement stores, all the places where all these violent criminals hang out, and not just hardworking members of the community, Trump astonishingly announced that he was sending in 300 Marines. Hoorah! Which, of course, is absolutely absurd and insane, and will only continue to exacerbate things, heighten tensions, and terrorize local communities. Just their presence.
Ron says cops should by allowing and watching all this to happen, because the cell phone towers, they have the technology by pinning that area. They know exactly who and where everybody is
antagonizing.
Yeah, that's the entire point.
Exactly.
They're not trained really in non-lethal munitions. They
literally
can't do anything except stand there and try to look scary.
This is at the direct behest of Pete Hegseth, Stephen Miller, Donald Trump, and Kristi Noem. But before we get into statements from Trump and our local politicians, we'd like to read a post that was making the rounds on Sunday afternoon that called pretty much like Babe Ruth, called exactly how the media and administration were going to react to this from just a mile away. And it sums all this up in words that we're not going to be able to top. So this is Travis Helwig on Instagram.
In the coming days, the national media is going to call LA a war zone. But the truth is, the folks protesting today were worried about
I'm sorry, Chad. I'm just jaundiced by Ethan Klein. Whenever I see an Instagram story, I have a reaction. But no, this isn't Ethan Klein.
Their friends, their neighbors, and their community. A few idiots will throw a rock, and it'll take over the entire narrative. But just know, LA is afraid right now because their co-workers were kidnapped at work, because the guy who sold them dinner was snatched by masked men, and because a bunch of neighbors' parents straight up never came home. As Trump gleefully escalates this with the National Guard, violence is inevitable. But just know, this protest started from a place of protection, a place of love. We love our family, we love our community. Whatever the news tells you in the coming days, that's the truth, and they're going to paint a vision of LA that is much different from that. Don't let them. And God, even the fucking local news, I had to switch from KCAL to ABC last night.
It was absurd.
Because they have to be a Sinclair station. I need to look that up. But like,
it's also just the fact that they're having to do like round the clock live commentary, and they just run out of things to say, and they're not reporting the news, but they're just like reacting as they personally see it, which is in a lot of cases completely wrong.
It was very clear that these reporters have very much like drank the Facebook Kool-Aid in a lot of ways, because they were openly talking about like, well, we don't know how many of these people we're seeing right now, flew in from out of state.
That was insane.
I was like, that's not a thing that happens.
No one booked tickets this morning to fly to LA to do this.
Last minute ticket to LA. I'm not doing anything. Time to go riot for, I don't know, reasons. Because like, walk me through why or how that would even fucking work. The only example of that ever fucking actually happening was January 6th.
Yeah.
And those people had like a month's advance notice to like, book hotels and flights and whatnot. It was driving me insane.
Yeah.
It's one way that the 10 years of Trump has just
melted people's brains,
created a narrative out of thin air that like people apparently just take as gospel now, even though it makes no fucking sense if you even think about it for a minute.
Yeah.
Anyway, we apologize for being just all over the place with this episode. Obviously, we have a lot of thoughts on what's going on here.
Wait, do you plan on entertaining or eating the most flavored pepper of all times? Are you wondering what I'm eating? Flavored pepper. I mean, look, I should flavor it with pepper. I do have some pepper flavor, but this is mango. The sour mango. Anybody ever had sour mango? It's a delicious snack.
Our timeline's going to be a little bit
You're pooping right now, phase 2. Eat some sour mango. It'll help you poop.
out of order. We're kind of jumping back and forth, but since we brought you up to speed on everything that we experienced and what our city has been through in the past few days, here's old Donnie Trump's statements, which are completely detached from reality and increasingly threatening.
On Saturday, Trump posted the following statement at a time where literally no riots or looting was happening at all. If Governor Gavin Newsome of California and
do not come, chat. Do not come.
I think it's Newsome. Newsome.
And Mayor Karen Bass of Los Angeles
Newscom
can't do their jobs, which everyone knows they can't, then the federal government will step in and solve the problem. Riots and looters, the way it should be solved. So Saturday night, before any National Guard had actually been deployed to the city at all, Trump also posted, "Great job by the National Guard in Los Angeles after 2 days of violence, clashes, and unrest. We have an incompetent governor, Newsome, and Mayor Bass, who were, as usual, just look at how they handled the fires and now their very slow permitting disaster. Federal permitting is complete, unable to handle the task. These radical left protests by instigators and often paid troublemakers will not be tolerated. Also, from now on, masks will not be allowed to be worn at protests. What do these people have to hide and why? Again, thank you to the National Guard for a job well done."
I think they're probably wearing masks because breathing in tear gas is painful for the lungs, and an N95 can help a little bit.
But don't worry, chat. ICE is still allowed to wear masks.
Yeah, a lot of people.
That's probably why.
They definitely don't want people knowing who they are, right? Because look, Trump's not going to be president forever. And there's a historical precedent for just following orders not being good enough as a defense, right? They definitely do not want to be unmasked.
A lot of people are fighting for their families and don't want to be identified, justifiably so.
Yeah, that's another thing. It's like you have made it very clear. Like they literally were flying like Reaper drones above LA. Yeah. You could see.
Horace Dox says they lied. Horace, they were there. Were you?
Like cops, every line of police had at least one person with a fucking camcorder, and it's like
you were like, I saw a clip though.
Yeah, they're covering
I saw a clip on Asmongold.
their faces because you're gonna try to
based.
throw them in prison for
Yeah,
simply
you're intimidating
like being outside.
Also, the
protests are happening all over the country, much bigger than the LA protests. I haven't seen, I mean, the LA protest is, I don't know what, in the tens of thousands. Altogether, yeah, the protests that are going on in other cities are probably, involving more people. But Sherry, let me know, is there a protest that's bigger?
Cops are wearing masks. Second of all, I didn't wear a mask.
They were there, David Santos, and they didn't see you. Okay, so you're lying.
When the tear gas came on, we did put them on.
Yeah.
But there's really no point for us to mask up. We're I know it not to we have somewhat of a following on YouTube, but we're sort of public figures. Our intentions are known.
Yeah,
we're gonna do things peacefully. We're gonna do things by the law, and we're not gonna we are there to protest and be seen. So I'm not gonna cover my face because you should know that I'm there and supporting this.
Shout out to everyone that said hi.
Yes. Now the National Guard did eventually show up on Sunday morning, and they arrived at the federal building to guard it from no one at all. Until they had live shots of them just standing there.
Bobby Molotov says in New York it's huge, but no cops, no violence. Just understand that the what they're doing is they're filming at night. Random violence going on in a lot of cases because the cops are otherwise occupied. The cops are not doing when shit like this happens, right? The cops do not respond to a lot of calls that aren't emergency. Right. So people that want to get away with something know that this is their best chance to get away with something. Then inevitably violence happens and then they blame it on the protesters. That's a great trick there. That's a great trick, right? Trump provokes people, rips people's families apart. People protest because they don't like what's going on. They got shot at with tear gas and flashbangs. And meanwhile, people just burn fucking dumpsters in the streets. And where are the cops? Nowhere, because they love the fact that the local news is filming this. Oh, great, cool. We'll be able to crack those heads of protesters now. It's a psyop. It's a psyop to associate one group of people with another. And I'm telling you, a lot of people, that are doing property destructions and stuff like that. It's the same kind of shit that you'd see in a city when the sports team wins the World Series or the Super Bowl or the whatever the hell basketball has, right? The Stanley Cup, it's the same kind of shit. And you don't see people trying to politicize those events, right? Those are apparently that's apparently fine.
And there's not even any protesters.
I think there was one guy with a funny sign, but I don't remember what it said.
There was when we showed up with the march, there was a sign that said National Guard, lol.
Yeah, it was that guy.
Oh, okay.
I think he was there all day.
Good.
Just standing there laughing at them.
But yeah, imagine one guy standing there and the entire National Guard that was deployed to this place is standing there like this, guarding it with militarized trucks behind them. But yes, that was until the organized protest started later in the afternoon.
Now, the next post was in multiple parts, but once again repeated some of the same statements, though with increasingly vile language. And I think our local NPR reporter Kai Risdall put it best with his response to the following statements. We'll read Trump's statement from Sunday first. A once great American city, Los Angeles, has been invaded and occupied by illegal aliens and criminals. Now, violent insurrectionist mobs are swarming and attacking our federal agents to try and stop our deportation operations. But these lawless riots only strengthen our resolve. I am directing Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, and Attorney General Pam Bondi, in coordination with all other relevant departments and agencies, to take all such action necessary to liberate Los Angeles from the migrant invasion and put an end to these migrant riots. Order will be restored, the illegals will be expelled, and Los Angeles will be set free. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Anyway, NPR's Kai Risdall responded with a quote that we've been using throughout. the episode because it is our lived experience as well. Hello, I live in Los Angeles. The president is lying.
Yep, he's a fucking liar. There was also a great opinion piece from Philip Bump that ran in the Washington Post on Monday that we would like to reference as well, because it gives a lot of context to everything that's been going on. Context that we might have unintentionally skipped over because we're trying to follow along on everything.
Dominus Pegas says Trump's promise when he wins, you won't have to vote anymore. It's not like Project 2025 said he was going to put the U.S. under martial law or anything. Stop believing your lying eyes and believe the great leader. That's right. His birthday is coming up. His birthday is coming up, chat, and he's going to have a great, big, beautiful military parade for his birthday. Never mind that it fucks up the streets of Washington, D.C., The leader's ego must be attended to.
Everything just like everyone else, while also trying to participate in peaceful opposition to the actions of this administration. So his piece is titled Donald Trump versus California and Everywhere Else. And here's some of that. What's important to remember about the fracture that emerged in Los Angeles over the weekend is that it came shortly after reports that President Donald Trump was seeking to block California from receiving certain federal funding. His team, the Post reported, was asking federal employees to develop rationales for the funding cuts, perhaps looking at conflicts with his executive orders about cutting costs or ending diversity initiatives. California Governor Gavin Newsome responded by noting that the state contributes far more in federal taxes than it receives in services. But the point wasn't really the money. The point was that the Trump administration wanted to bring California to heel, precisely as it had sought to bring elite universities to heel, similarly by contriving reasons the government might strip funding.
Your average street cleaner says, I'm 100% sure Trump is trying to get escalation. He's doing the escalation. You're right. I mean, he's not just trying, though. Like, right, he's literally, yeah, ripping families apart. If you want people to get upset, disappear their parents, disappear their aunt, disappear their uncle, disappear their brother, disappear their sister. You know, have people just, like, not show up. And nobody knows where the fuck they are, and they figure out, oh yeah, this person didn't have papers yet. I bet they got taken by ICE, right? I mean, he's absolutely, that's the plan, to provoke a response, and then to use that response to justify his dictatorship, right? Dictatorship on day one, nope. Dictator every day.
Methodology was the same because
until we make him leave in chat, at this point it's starting to look like we're going to have to make it. It looks like he's not going to go willingly this time.
The intent was the same. Inflict pain on an entity that Trump viewed as hostile to his presidency.
Immigration officials and officers have been a critical component of those efforts to inflict pain. For example, Harvard University, a target of administration efforts to block funding, had its ability to enroll students from overseas thrown into legal limbo. Meanwhile, California, and Los Angeles in particular, is home to more than 1 million immigrants who are living in the U.S. without legal documentation, providing lots of potential enforcement opportunities for immigration police less concerned about deporting potentially dangerous immigrants than simply deporting any immigrant who might be subject to deportation. Last month, the conservative Washington Examiner reported that Trump advisor Stephen Miller had excoriated senior immigration officials for the slow pace of deportations. Stephen Miller wants everybody arrested, an official told the newspaper. Miller, the official said, asked, "Why aren't you at Home Depot? Why aren't you at 7-Eleven?" So Immigration and Customs Enforcement went to a Home Depot in Los Angeles. There, they met resistance from protesters seeking to shield targeted immigrants, often their neighbors, from ICE's efforts. The result was conflagration, which there are plenty of reasons to assume is exactly what the administration sought.
The protests that federal officers encountered on Saturday were sufficiently tame that the Los Angeles Police Department took the remarkable step of releasing a public statement indicating that the protests were peaceful and concluded without incident.
You don't have to hand it to them.
That was not how members of the Trump administration described what was underway. Miller referred to isolated scenes of conflict as an insurrection over and over and over and over again. Again, the easiest way to understand this is not that Los Angeles has suddenly turned into a metropolis riddled with criminal immigrants who are holding it hostage. The easiest way to understand this is that the president and his administration have been looking to California as they have been looking to crush any center of power that he views as adversarial. The reason the National Guard was deployed to Los Angeles for what appeared to be a pretty uneventful mission is not that soldiers were needed to restore order. It was because Trump wanted to tell a story about the heavy hand he would bring down on anyone who attempted to stand in his way, even if the—
What are the headphones for? Well, I guess I could get some monitors, but you'd hear feedback.
Hand's heaviness was equivalent to deploying a platoon against a ghost. Again, links to full articles down in the description. He goes way more into detail.
Yeah, it's he's got his big military parade coming up.
Yeah, exactly, Dominus Pegas.
No, it's this weekend.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, it's this Sunday, I believe.
Cool.
And there are nationwide protests scheduled.
Anyway, this is just more of that.
Yeah.
Just, I'm a big look at my army. Look at what I can make them do.
The images. Sorry,
He wants the escalation because he knows his followers will still blame any and all escalation, any and all violence on the victims being forcefully ripped from their homes by agents without uniforms. Yeah.
Concentrate totally on it, but the images of like trains arriving to the DC area just covered with tanks is
Elias says a test to see how far he can push his dictatorship. Yeah, I mean, look, like LA right now is Trump's test kitchen. That's what's going on. He's seeing what he can get away with.
Outrageous.
He's seeing who pushes back. And right now the people of Southern California are pushing back.
So fucking silly. Like, I mean.
And how much money are they wasting on the response here in Los Angeles and all of that in Washington, D.C. at a time when they are complaining about a so-called deficit and at a time where they just simply refuse to fund programs that provide vital services to people in need?
Yeah, that kind of parade is something a country does when it wants to, when it's no longer being taken seriously. It's got to puff up its chest and be like, hey, I'm actually pretty dangerous too. No one believes the U.S. is militarily weak. We get it. There's no reason for this.
The DC parade and the response in LA is offensive with how much money they're probably wasting. Like, not even probably. I know that it's millions upon millions of dollars that they're wasting on this.
Oh yeah, well. They might be saving a lot of money that they would be spending on hotels and whatnot, because from the sound of it, they're not being offered much in the way of quarter.
The ICE agents were turned away finally from the Pasadena hotel.
Yeah, they got kicked out.
Am I live? I hope so.
And the National Guard is apparently just sleeping on the floor and sleeping outside. And that
Chat, this isn't the afterlife, is it?
I mean. That seems to be the way to do this. There was apparently at one point some DHS people had their tires slashed, and then a tow truck came, and the crowd was able to convince the tow truck driver not to help them, so he just fucking left.
It's the protest equivalent of when the opposing team hits a home run and all the fans throw the ball back.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of value potentially to. These people, they need food, they need shelter.
Evan Pitt says, you Democrats make me sick, protecting people that shouldn't even be in our country in the first place. Evan, who are you talking about? Where you see Democrats? Where you see Democrats, Evan?
And if we as a city can tell them to fuck off and not humor any of that, that really ties their hands.
Yeah, and also there were plenty of...
I'm going to eat...
getting their point across.
More mango so I can get more fat comments from Shorts chat. You can call me fat more because I'm eating sour mango.
Very clear.
A known contributor to obesity right here.
And non-violently pleading to especially the National Guard members who are like, you signed an oath to defend the Constitution and here you are not living up to that oath.
I mean, I would assume a lot of them probably have mixed feelings, but also a lot of them, especially
they probably were waiting.
Especially
for
in the
like
Guard,
this.
they're like finally something to fucking do.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I mean, like, has the National Guard even? They're not the ones firing.
Yeah, you want to deport somebody? How about we start with Elon Musk and oh my God, what the fuck is her name? Melania. Yeah, you want to talk about illegal people that are in the country illegally? Trump's wife and his former BFF. And hey, chat, we might actually get the Elon Musk deportation. Steve Bannon, the president's other BFF, has said that he has suggested that Elon Musk is his immigration status is not legit, and also has talked about possibly nationalizing SpaceX. So,
gas, are they?
I guess a broken clock is right once every few centuries.
There's a lot of CHP, a lot of sheriff's department.
Yeah, like
CHP.
I think
How about we start with you? Too bad, Alex T. I already deported myself.
National Guard's literally just standing there.
Nice try, though. I'm not in America, silly.
To like make it look tougher than
the
it already
National
is.
Guard, as far as I saw, was totally just on the federal building because that is federal property.
Yeah.
Elon Musk, Andrew Navarro, was in the country under an educational visa, and he stopped going to school. He broke the terms of his visa.
So it was CHP and
See, you just don't know because your head's up Trump's ass so tight, right? It's suction. It's suctioned in there and you can't hear anything. And you're like, oh, Elon Musk isn't I mean, not even Trump's ass at this point. I keep on forgetting they're not on good terms now. It's hard, Chad. It's hard to think of Elon and Musk as being, arch enemies at this point, but I guess they are.
And sheriffs who were doing the
South Africa hates his guts. He's got 6-year-olds mining lithium.
Fucking stupid. God damn.
But hey, now the Marines are coming.
Cool.
Yeah, literally as we film this episode in our studio that is within earshot of downtown LA, Trump is sending Marines into our city. And as of when we wrote the episode, the only protest happening was a student protest downtown.
Yeah, you can only get AM radio in Trump's ass.
And organized.
There's no Wi-Fi. The Wi-Fi doesn't come through.
Still, the National Guard is here, the Marines are apparently coming, and communities are terrified. But look, we're going to give you as much hope as we possibly can. First of all, like Elliot pointed out, the hotel in Pasadena was like, nope, ICE, get out.
Too much trouble.
The city of Glendale, which is just a few miles from downtown LA, has ended their contract with ICE and put out a statement informing the public of their decision. So there you go. Bullying continues to work. Also, Service Employees International Union President David Huerta, who we mentioned earlier and who was beaten and arrested on Friday while attempting to stop an ICE raid, has now finally been released from custody, but also faces a federal charge of
You bought John Tapper's book, Rambo for Life says? We all know the secrets of Biden's cover-ups and corruption. Do you mean Jake Tapper, Rambo for Life?
Conspiracy to impede an officer. We hope that he will beat these charges, especially with the full force of the community and legal representation behind him.
I saw some excerpts from the case they have against him, and it is paper thin. Literally, like, the only evidence that he was like coordinating to assault cops was that he was looking at his phone. So I guess clearly that means he was involved in some sort of conspiracy. They have nothing.
Yeah, and also, by the way, like when he was detained, our congressman flew from D.C. to come back here, and so that he could walk onto that property and make sure that David Huerta and the other detainees were like getting proper legal representation, checking in on them, making sure they were being fed, and they denied him access to the building as well as all of the other lawyers that were there to talk to clients.
Anyway, they may have really fucked up there because that union, I mean, he's the local
union president.
Local president. That union has activated in every metro area in the country, protesting against ICE. Other union leaders have expressed inter-union solidarity.
I did see the Writers Guild West was out today.
Yeah. I mean, the SIEU, David Huerta's union, I mean, they had a huge fucking presence on Sunday.
Yeah.
And
justifiably pissed off.
And hello, Democrats. I thought you were the party of the working man, the working.
Are you checking to see if this is really live? Well, I hope this helps.
Class, the pro-union party. It would be cool to see just any spinefulness on this at all.
Yeah. Now, on a personal level, I want to say thank you to everyone who posted or reposted anything that they saw this weekend. I know sometimes it feels like you're not doing enough by posting, but you are spreading the truth through photos and videos and experiences that people might not see or hear otherwise. And I also want to thank everyone who came up and said hi to us at the protests, thanked us for doing this show, and in some cases told us that they felt less intimidated to show up and add their bodies and voices to the march because they knew that we would be there too. In some cases, marching right alongside them. And I'd also like to personally thank @Gonzo_Times on Instagram, who has been putting himself in harm's way the entire week and documenting everything.
Some great shots.
I'd never met him before, and he spotted me at a protest on Friday night and said that our show partly inspired him to get into photojournalism. And it's hard to react to that because it always seems like this show is very dumb, very silly and inconsequential. But it is moments like that that inspire us to keep going and keep showing up for others.
Yeah, we also want to thank our local independent news outlets who you should absolutely support financially if you are in Los Angeles or just want to support independent press. LA Taco, which is basically the last of the local sort of local indie alternative press here. They've been on site filming and reporting. They have a fantastic article up on their site right now called "Trump Can't Win the Battle for Los Angeles," and they have a very handy Blue Sky follower pack. So you can follow.
Daniel Price says, I don't know. You sure it's live? That could be AI generated mango.
A bunch of
And their
journalists who are
Instagram
on the
is
site.
very active with filming.
I mean, are any of us live? It's a kind of an existential question at that point.
What's going on an hour by hour, minute to minute basis.
The LA Public Press, which was only founded a few years ago and has done some of the best local reporting available. They have an article you should check out titled "ICE Raids Tried to Split LA Apart, but..."
TS says protesting against ICE is stupid. No, actually it's based. ICE was formed as part of the Patriot Act, which should be repealed. Should be repealed, right? Do you know who's responsible for 9/11? George W. Bush. Not because I think he did 9/11 or anything like that, or like any of those conspiracy theories, but because he was fucking negligent. And instead, the gutless media rallied around George W. Bush and let him do whatever the fuck that he wanted. And that's taken away so many of our civil rights. The Patriot Act needs to be repealed. All right? Department of Homeland Security should be abolished. ICE should be abolished. Hell, the MIGRA, the old version of ICE, should be freaking abolished. It's a waste of money.
Might have made it stronger.
Yep.
Of course, there's also LAist, which is our local public radio station, runs NPR stuff. They're also facing direct attacks from the Trump administration as well as funding cuts. But I was listening to a little bit of LAist on Sunday, and it was some of the only like mainstream local reporting I'd listened to where they were very, very clear.
Learn the rules of the platform you're on if you don't want to get banned. Look, the other thing is like, don't act like a bot. Okay, like the chat's been pretty big. I think we got up to 700 tonight. So the mods have a lot of work to do, and sometimes they have to do it really fast, right? So yeah, if you're getting right, just don't act like a bot, right? Because they have to deal with lots of bots, and if you act like a bot, you might get banned.
About the government, the law, being the ones who started this shit, and how everything was peaceful until they just randomly started gassing the crowd. I appreciated that. On a more personal note, our friends who have been flooding the zone with footage, reporting, explanations, and more. You got Quentin Quarantino, who also marched along.
Wait, what's your point of your channel other than stealing content and trying to make them look bad? Do I look like I'm trying to make the internet today look bad? I feel like of all the people that I've covered today, Gavin Newsome, Karen Bass, Bernie Sanders, I have even had some smoke for. I feel like these two guys are like the least of it, right? I'm showing you these two guys because they're in LA and they've put together a chronological retelling of the events of these protests, right? Not a lot of people understand why they're even going on. And so they take it back to the beginning and they explain how it all unfolded. And what it's really like at the protests and what it's really like in LA right now. I'm sharing it on a different medium. Thank you very much. And look, if they have a problem with it, I've added them in the description. They can let me know. Don't try to pocket watch in here. Just because you got nothing. Just because you got nothing, you got no clout. You got no clout. You're pocket watching. What are you doing? K9 Cop. And your name is K9 Cop 14. What the hell is that? What are you gonna sniff my drugs? Are you gonna sniff my? What are you doing here, K9 Cop?
From insurgents who did not march, but has been.
I prefer Air Bud.
Doing a good job, gathering a lot of footage and sharing it,
contextualizing it.
And Taylor Lorenz of User Mag, also Hassan, who was out there live streaming all day Sunday, and I thought I watched.
Isn't it about ICE deporting illegal aliens? It's about ICE deporting whoever the fuck they want. They've pulled up people that aren't illegal. They've had people show them their birth certificate and ripped up the birth certificate. They don't fucking care. Look, here's what you don't get, Filippo. If you get pulled in by ICE, half of the time you don't get to see a judge. So if you're an American citizen, how are you going to prove that? You're in El Salvador. You're in El Salvador getting your head fucking shaved, right? You don't get to see a judge. You don't get a lawyer because Trump is running this illegal fascist shit show.
I watched the compilation footage of it, and I think there's a lot of value there of just showing.
Tobias Ingram says, I'm a Fed. That's definitely what a Fed would say.
On the ground, that these are normal fucking people, not violent people.
Nope.
But don't act like a bot or you will get banned.
Not paid antagonizers or people that flew in to like cause
And like
chaos.
he didn't try to hide like a lot of the
Yeah, Dominus Pegas says ICE is deporting tan people. Pretty much. If you look like you might be Latino, you know, they come for you, and you don't get a chance. You don't get a chance to prove that you're born here, you're a citizen or whatever.
dumb bullshit from the crowd. But like when you see it from that perspective, it's pretty wild to see someone standing on the 101 freeway.
That's literally not happening. It literally is, Panda.
But it's like, this is a pretty calm scene.
Yeah.
It's not a war zone by anyone's definition.
And as for how you can help,
Unless you were responding to something else, in which case, see, I don't know what Panda Life's responding to, actually.
we'll leave links below to information so that you can know your rights if you are
I am a bot. Beep, boop, beep. That's what a bot would say, AZ.
attending a protest in the future, as well as your basic constitutional rights when it comes to being detained or being targeted by ICE agents or someone that you know being targeted. We'll also leave a link where you can donate to Mutual Aid LA to help support.
Yeah, that's right, Schmegley. The feds literally, they legally have to tell you they're a fed every 3 seconds. That's how you know it's a fed.
Affected by these illegal raids. And there will be a link to where you can order red cards to hand out. The red cards are available in a bunch of different languages, and they're a handy pocket-sized guide to your rights. Bloop. I've been giving them out. There you go. Give them to anyone and everyone, because as we've seen, ICE isn't just targeting criminal gang members or violent thugs or whatever Trump says. They're trying to meet an impossible quota. They will grab whoever they can, regardless of legal status, just by the color of their skin.
They're grabbing the hot dog lady, and I need my bacon-wrapped hot dog after I get out of
Sleeping Drifter, you're spreading misinformation. Go take some ivermectin.
show at 1
You sound like you got brainworms, right? That'll kill the, it won't, look, ivermectin won't keep you safe from COVID, but it might kill your parasites.
o'clock in the morning. I'm fucking hungry. I need that hot dog, and maybe I'll get one of those Salvadoran pancakes too. But if all these people get taken away, I'm going to go home hungry. And you don't want to see me when I'm hungry. Now, there is, of course, other news out there. We'll get to that, I guess, on our next episode. But we did at least.
Oh my God. So yeah, they put it together pretty well tonight. I don't usually watch them because, again, Internet Today kind of does what I do. They kind of do what I do. And it's like, we cover a lot of the same stories. Usually I just kind of, there's not much point in reacting to them, but I thought that today's episode was a really standout episode, right? They were in the area, they were at the protest, they know what's going on, and they've got a pretty good timeline put together as far as, how this all unfolded, the order of events. And it's important to check in with that sometimes, especially when we live in a culture that just thrives on viral clips. And a viral clip, somehow says 1,000 words, gives people 1,000 assumptions, and fills in these huge gaps of knowledge with stuff that's not even true. And when you're focused in so tight on one burning dumpster fire in the middle of an intersection in Compton, you're not seeing the entirety of the story. You're certainly not seeing the entirety of the protest. So I tried to give you a little bit of that yesterday, just watching a very boring AP stream of the protest and showing you that no, we do not see any illegal acts, right? The AP is on that protest the whole day. The closest thing to an illegal act that we saw on that stream yesterday, chat, might have been like some pretty sick dance moves when the protesters got bored and decided to do a dance off. So it's not what they're telling you. There is misinformation out there. It's all over the place. There is, decontextualization. Like I talk about misinformation, disinformation, straight up lies. The Trump administration is the originators of fake news. So, they're great about that. But you've also got decontextualization where you, like I said, you zoom in on something so tight that you can't see the forest for the trees. So we're trying to peel back, see the forest for the trees, and look at the situation as it actually is, as a provocation by the Trump administration of Southern California answering that call, defending their family members, defending their friends, defending their community members from these illegal ICE purges. And then, you just got to be lied about. They're going to lie about. They're going to show somebody else, smashing a Waymo and torching it, And they're going to blame you for that somehow, because it's like, yeah, well, I guess it's a protester, right? The protests are going on, so this person must be a protester. We don't know who the fuck that person is. You don't know what the fuck their motivation is. Are there people out there that want a direct confrontation with law enforcement authorities? Yeah, I guess. And there's probably some of them out there over the weekend. But there's also a lot of people that just want to see the world burn, right? And they got to burn a little tiny portion of the world over the weekend, but that doesn't have anything to do with the protesters. I think Bernie fucked up in his tweet here, right? When he implied, when he conflates the violence with the protests. It's got nothing to do with that. And a lot of people, including the serfs, including Hassan, have let him know. Anyway, remember, this is a actual political cartoon from the era when Martin Luther King was alive, leading protests. And wait, no, it doesn't show up. Oh my God! Wait, can I make this smaller? Can I shrink this down so you can actually see it? Because there's a, oh my God, God, Twitter fucking sucks. I hate Elon. All right, let me try. If I go like that and I go like open image in a new tab, maybe then I can zoom us out slightly. Okay. Hopefully you can see that, chat. Let me zoom it out a little bit more. Right there, maybe. All right. So yeah, this is a political cartoon about Martin Luther King. You can see the, shit's torn up. The dude is knocked out. Lots of dudes are knocked out. There's broken bottles. There's bricks. There's cars on fire. The same kind of shit that you're seeing on Fox News, right? Only this was in the 60s, and this was about Martin Luther King and his protests. They said the same shit about him, right? And look at this. Look at this. Look at how they're making fun. You know how like right-wingers love to be like, oh, peaceful protests, peaceful protests. What about this peaceful protest? Here's a dumpster on fire. What about this peaceful protest? Here's a dude bashing a Waymo, right? And so the caption here is, I plan to lead another non-violent march. I can't do a Martin Luther King chat, but you can imagine in Martin Luther King's voice. I plan to lead another non-violent march tomorrow. And that is how he was written up. That was how he was talked about in the time that he was alive. Martin Luther King had an incredibly low approval rating. People did not like him at the time, viewed him as somewhat of a troublemaker and a rabble rouser, and yes, blamed him for, violence that would happen in and around, any kind of activism that he did. He would get blamed for that as well, right? So, the beat goes on, and some things never change. Speaking of never changing, it is 1:46 right now in Los Angeles. This is some dude driving around there. There's actually not a lot going on tonight. In LA, curfew is in effect. Let me see if I can find a live shot of Los Angeles. There it is, chat. There's LA. Very boring. Let me see what else I might have in my bag of goodies here. I got sour mango. Okay, we got some stuff. Let's look at this. All right, so this is Chicago.
Continuing to follow breaking news from downtown Chicago, we understand that chaos is unfolding at the anti-ICE protests in Chicago. The Brona Tumulty has been covering. We heard that everything was peaceful, but now this video is showing a...
we heard that everything was peaceful, so we decided not to cover it. But now, you know, we can show you something and make it look like it's not.
Car driving through the street, narrowly missing protesters. Police.
Oh yeah, wait, no, this happened in LA too. There was a guy doing reverse donuts. He was, you know what a donut is, right? You drive your car around and around, and you leave tire tracks on the street. A reverse donut is doing that in reverse, right? So some dude was doing that in a white van, and actually like plow it, like, you know, it looked like trying to run down protesters. Obviously not somebody who's a fan of the protesters. He was eventually tracked down and arrested by police in LA, but now we got another one of these this vehicle.
Police officers running after the vehicle. We don't know yet if anyone has been hit. The protest started out peacefully, as I said. It's gotten chaotic as it moves around downtown. We have seen several people.
It's weird to say it started out peacefully, and it's just like, look, I mean, just say that they're exercising their First Amendment right, all right? There's also some guy in a car trying to run people down. That doesn't mean that the protest isn't peaceful. That means that probably some fucking chud is trying to pull a Charlottesville on people.
Put in handcuffs already. Let's go to Brona Tumulty right now for the latest. Brona.
Good evening, guys. Yeah, we're moving east at the moment on Jackson, I believe it is. There's quite a crowd up ahead of us. Things have definitely gotten a little bit more out of hand at times since we've spoken with you. There have been several skirmishes with police. At one point, a car drove right at the crowd, through the crowd. It almost missed me as well. Several people jumping out of the way. I don't know if anybody has been injured in that.
I gotta admit, chat, I'm a little bit jealous of Irish people, okay? I'm a little bit jealous of Irish people. Your accents are fucking awesome. And you can move over to the United States and get a job as a news anchor because we fucking love the way that your accents sound, right? I don't think I could do that in Ireland. I think that if I can't imagine going to Ireland and being like, yeah, like give me a job covering the news, and I will read the news with an American accent. I don't think people would be that charmed by it, right? You can't go to France and be like, listen to my romantic American accent. Aren't you seduced by me? And they're like, no, you know, get out. They smack you across the face with a baguette.
Maroon-colored vehicle.
Yo, thank you for the contribution to my Thai visa fund, whoever that was.
The sheer sound of the crowd here behind me. We're almost up to the lakefront, up to Michigan Avenue.
Oh.
We've seen several arrests, at least 2 arrests.
It is a wonderful accent, though. Truly it is. I'm sorry, it is.
Another person detained sorry, the intersection is failing me at the moment, but it's definitely gotten a little bit more chaotic. We've seen rushes at the police. Just a very difficult day at the moment.
Yo, thank you, Anonymous, for the $34 contribution to the Help Me Stay in Thailand fund. Help me stay the fuck out of America. At least while Trump's running it.
Started as peaceful has definitely escalated. I see that you are now heading towards Michigan Avenue, heading east.
Oh, what? 34? That's like a magic number. That brings us to 100.
The lake. A lot more people than initially that were there. Tell us a little more about this car. You said it barely missed you.
Yeah, I was standing at the corner of State and Monroe.
Unasked input. Make sure you don't forget to put the lotion in the basket. Do you have lotion? Unasked input. You're not beating off, are you?
I believe it was, and the car was coming towards us. A police officer actually grabbed me and pulled me out of the way. So we're just a little bit shaken up at the moment, but we are moving east towards Michigan Avenue.
Where's that car now? Do you know?
Jackson.
Brona, can you hear me? Where's that car now?
I can hear you.
I'm not really jealous, Chad. I'm not really mad at her, and I'm sure she's a great journalist. I'm not dissing her journalistic skills. I would love it if my American accent was as like sexy and you know, alluring to like you know, Thai people as like a French accent or an Irish accent or you know, what have you is in America. I have gone from I am Weasel Energy to I are Baboon. You are Baboon?
I've lost my photographer, so I'm not quite sure.
Well, he's nearby.
He's
there. Let's get to the hose again. Why is this turning sexual?
can hear you. He's here. I found him. It's a little chaotic, as you can imagine. I don't know where
People are pulling out their hose and getting lotion. I don't know about this.
it did kind of plow through the crowd. Again, I don't know if anybody was
Andrew, you need to ask. Says you need to ask for money. Wait, what?
injured in that. It did seem like people were rushing to get out of the way. It almost seemed like it sped up to get through the crowd. It did seem to come east this direction, and police did seem to go after it. So I don't know if that person has been apprehended or not. But certainly a very a chaotic scene.
Yeah, we're hearing that the person
by that incident in itself.
Just embrace the cards you're dealt as an American. Okay, I can do that, Mac. That's good advice.
I'm hearing from people that they say the person driving the car got out of the car.
Welsh accent is also underrated.
Got back in the car and started driving.
I personally couldn't see that from my perspective. It's a little harder to see these things on the ground.
Yeah, there's definitely some hose in this house, Schmegley. I think you're right.
Not sure what feed caught that, but that could well be the case. But the car definitely left the area and came east, I believe.
Well,
Sophia Martinez says, when I say Irish, I mean Irish with a full-blown accent.
obviously glad that you're okay, Bron. I understand it's alarming, troubling there. Would you?
Oh, thank you, Narwhal.
At this point, does it feel confrontational? Are the protesters shouting things at police officers? Is it getting tense where that's concerned?
You know, it's hard to tell. The crowd has grown significantly since all of this started. When we were over in Federal Plaza at 5:30, I would say there was probably several hundred people. It certainly seems like it has swelled to a greater number than that at the moment. I think it's still moving east towards the lake at the moment. But yeah, I don't...
Timothy Hardesty says, I'm Irish and I was in a hospital in America and the nurses were coming in just to talk to me and hear my accent. Oh my gosh, that's got to be so weird.
I don't know how to answer that question because I would say at times it has certainly been more tense than others. There definitely have been like confrontations to a degree. But I think, I mean, overall it seems like things are quite peaceful. And that is certainly what people told us.
See, even when there's some asshole trying to run down protesters in a car, it's like, well, the protest was peaceful. Like, did the nature of the protesters change? Did these people just change from bad people to good, from good people to bad people, just because somebody tried to fucking run over them? Like, it's so weird. Anything that happens within the vicinity of a protest becomes the fault of the protesters. It's like they did it.
Talking to them that they wanted this to remain peaceful, that they didn't want things to get out of hand and to look like they're currently looking in Los Angeles.
Brona, we got a live shot from Skycam now.
Oh, Luis says, U.S. politics are just a big shit show. Why are the liberals not pushing for inauguration when you have a criminal as a president doing all he can to dismantle democracy, democratic institutions in the U.S.? Hey, Luis, good question, first of all. Second of all, inauguration is what happens when you hold a ceremony for the new president going into office. You're thinking of impeachment. That's the word for when, let's see, a majority of the House of Representatives votes on articles of impeachment. So right now, the House of Representatives, unfortunately, is just ever so slightly tipped towards the Republicans. And the Republicans are gutless, right? Why doesn't the U.S. House draft articles of impeachment and pass them? Because there's not one brave Republican in the entire House. They're all afraid of Trump, and up until recently, they were all afraid of Elon. We'll see if things change at some point, right? You are having some people starting to have buyer's remorse, at least voters having buyer's remorse about Trump. We'll see what happens with the House, right? So that would be the first step. The second step is in the U.S. Senate. And that requires, is it 60 votes or 67, Chad? I think it's 67. I think it's a ridiculous amount of the Senate has to vote to remove the president from office, right? So that's what happens in the Senate. Now, that's never really happened, at least in the modern era. The closest we came was with Richard Nixon, who was an absolute crook. And everybody knew it, and even the Republicans admitted it, and they would have removed him from office, except for the fact that he was he resigned. He handed the presidency to Gerald Ford, who subsequently lost in the next election to Jimmy Carter, who ushered in the age of neoliberalism. And we're all suffering for that, right? We're all suffering from the deindustrialization and the abandonment of Keynesian economics, which, while it's not the economics that I think are great, I tend to be a fan of Karl Marx when it comes to questions of economics. But, you know, John Maynard Keynes, at least that is capitalism with a soft glove, so to speak. And they abandoned that. They abandoned the working class, absolutely. And the Democrats have had trouble getting elected ever since. And their only answer has been like, you know what we should do? Since we're losing to the Republicans, hey, what if we were more like the Republicans? What if we would just be more conservative? If they like Republicans, maybe they'll like a nice conservative Democrat. And that's what gets you bullshit like Bill Clinton's supposed welfare reform, right? Hurting the working class again. See, they're taking the wrong message. The American people want a political party. Working people in America want a political party that's on their fucking side. And, you know, the Democrats, I guess, in the 40s kind of got bullied into passing the New Deal. FDR even wanted a workers' bill of rights that didn't end up getting passed, but it would have been great. And you know, for a while, people had just, you know, the New Deal was defining not just the Democratic Party, but the Republican Party as well. And yeah, you know, things changed in the 70s, and ever since, right? Ever since, people have been getting more and more miserable. You know, what you have essentially is, if you look at the production, which is how much you, as an average worker, how much value you create for your boss, for your company, right? The literal value of your contribution, that's your production, right? If you look at average production and you put it on a graph along with average pay, between the 40s and let's say the late 70s, you saw that graph, you saw them both go up at the same time. So, right, like both lines are going up. They're going up, 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 up. You get to the late 70s, and what happens is production, the amount of value produced per worker, inflation adjusted, continues to increase. You know what that means, chat? That kind of means that you're doing not only your own job, but you're doing the job of your coworker that just got fired, right? That they're laying people off, that they're firing people, and they're taking the workers that they have left and they're asking them to do more work, right? But what hasn't gone up since the 70s is the median rate of pay. Inflation adjusted, it's been pretty fucking flat, right? And yeah, people are pissed. People are pissed, and the Democrats aren't giving them a remedy for that malaise. And until they you know, decide to do that, or until a new, maybe further to the left party rises up in its place, you know, shit's going to keep on sucking in America. Shit is going to keep on sucking.
And we can see, when you were there, I know you're at Michigan Avenue, but now it has spilled over onto, I don't know if this is just DuSable Lakeshore Drive or Columbus. But I think it might be DuSable Lakeshore Drive. But anyway, it's going towards Monroe. Several people still walking. We still don't have a lot of information about that car. Only what people are saying and reporting, and I'm getting some emails from folks who are saying what other people have seen happen. But from what we're looking at, it still looks very peaceful. But we do know that people have been taken into custody already.
I believe at least my photographer said he saw 2 people being arrested at State and Monroe. I saw another 2 people being detained myself, but the intersection is failing me at the moment. So at least 4, I would say, at this point that we're aware of, but who knows how many more will be detained before the end of the day.
Yeah, and I wonder, that's got to be gridlocked down there right now as far as rush hour is concerned, because we see the police officers cutting everything off, and we do hear them now speaking loudly on their bullhorns. But now they seem to be turning back down Monroe. We've got your shot up right there. We see the Art Institute, and we see the police officers down there. We see people carrying flags and things. So it's definitely still moving, the protest is, but the traffic is gridlocked right now.
Absolutely. I mean, police have done a very good job in kind of cordoning roads off as the crowd has moved and blocking path of
Daisy England says, "Girl, do you sleep? Listen, I'm halfway across the world. Right now it's 4. Oh my God, chat! It's 4 o'clock my time. Oh,
they're moving and kind of directing the flow.
I didn't realize how late in the day. Yeah, 4 o'clock p.m. That's what it is my time. Right. So if it seems like I'm up really late, it's because I'm just up at a normal time.
Of the march, but they are still very on the move. They're kind of moving towards any street that they have access to. We've kind of chilled east, south, and kind of all over the place to make it down towards the lake.
Wait, it's not bad enough to quit your job and actually protest? Listen, Zeltex, I mean, if you built a company...
Because it was so peaceful up here, but now...
I feel like you're well within your rights to occupy your workplace. I feel you're well within your rights to take control over what that capital built. I feel like you're well within your rights to seize the means of production for yourself.
Front here, and we're standing right in the middle of the intersection of Michigan and I think it's Jackson at the moment, and they seem to be moving away from us. They seem to be moving east towards the water.
Yeah, they're turning on Monroe.
How big the crowd is at this point.
Yeah, they're turning west on Monroe. They're kind of going around.
Jesse Grant says, y'all are some crazy theories. The Mexican flag shouldn't even be there. This is the United States. The funny thing about it, Jesse Grant, is before this was the United States, this was Mexico. We're looking at Chicago now, just to be clear, right? But I think you were thinking of LA because that's what most of the conversation is about. And yeah, California, Oregon, New Mexico, Arizona, we're all part of Mexico. We're all part of Mexico. And a lot of the people that live in Southern California that are Latino, they're not here because they crossed the border. They're here because the border crossed them. There are definitely a good number of people with family in the area that predates the acquisition of California and these other territories by the United States from Mexico.
Around Lakeshore Drive, then turning left on Monroe and going back up that way towards Columbus Drive. That's what we're seeing right now. We also see them spilling over into the Bandshell area. So they're kind of all over the place.
Rona, let me ask you, are the police officers there, are they telling people to disperse at this point? Are they trying to guide them into a certain place, or is it just they're going wherever they want and police are just trying to make sure that there's no violence that's happening to the people that are there demonstrating?
You think that matters now? Look, it matters because there's people that are being seized by ICE that are American citizens. Do you know why they're being seized? Why would ICE seize an American citizen, right? Why would they do that? Because they're Latino. Literally, your skin. Your skin is what they're making these judgments on. You show them a birth certificate, they rip it up in front of your face. Throw it in the wind. They don't care. They don't have to go through courts anymore. All they know is that Stephen Miller is breathing down their ass to increase the number of deportations. He's saying to ICE, you're not deporting fast enough. Deport faster, pick up more people, right? And so they got a quota to meet. And the only way they can meet the quota is with these illegal raids. That's what's going on in the United States of America. The only way you could possibly do something as crazy as deport 1 million people within 1 year is to deny them due process and proceed with this shit illegally, which is what Trump is doing.
I would say, Ray, there's very much a sense of them being guided towards certain areas. They are allowing them to obviously...
How come the cops on bikes, they look exactly like Mormon missionaries to me? I don't know.
Have their moment, have the march. And like I said, things are largely peaceful. People are moving.
Are they saying 8,000 per day now to make up the for the lost time?
Wherever they're kind of allowed to go, wherever they're being free to move. I didn't see that State Street was quite blocked off with cops. We're not allowing them to march down State Street, so they kind of cordoned them off and made them move more east of that area. There was lots of police cars, police vehicles blocking off State, so they weren't allowed to go down there, which has kind of led the group east towards the water.
All right, Brona, thanks. I know you've got a lot to cover down there, but we are still on that Skycam shot. But folks, in case you're just tuning in, we're following this anti-ICE protest that has been going along the area. There have been arrests, but The most poignant part at this point is that someone drove through that area, and we're going to get more information on that. We don't know what happened to that person.
Chicago local news, you're such a disappointment. Oh, this is WGN. This is a pretty big network. All right, so look, we watched a pretty lengthy timeline earlier from Internet Today. Now I want to take a look at a more concise timeline. This is from ABC News. How ICE raids sparked Los Angeles protests. I'm curious what they've got.
Tensions are escalating in Los Angeles after protests against immigration and customs enforcement gripped the city. As protesters clashed with law enforcement officers, blocking roads after protest against...
I don't know, ABC.
Tensions are escalating in Los Angeles after protest against...
This is the problem with these protests, right? Is that the exact images that are selling Trump's narrative are the images that are most likely to go viral. Like I said, we watched a protest yesterday from, just kind of scrolled through the AP's like 8-hour video of it. And for the most part, it was pretty boring. It was pretty boring. There wasn't a lot going on. There was no illegal acts going on unless you count the sick dance moves that some of the protesters were doing when they got in a circle and did a little bit of a dance off, right? There just wasn't anything super interesting, right? But a dude with a shirt off, with his shirt wrapped over his head, waving a flag on top of a burning car, that's pretty interesting. But that's also the exact bullshit narrative that Trump and his minions are trying to spin here. So, yeah, I don't know how much of this is the perverse incentives of the algorithm and, trying to get as many clicks as possible, and how much of it is just complacency. ABC News, if you don't know, their parent corporation, I believe, is Paramount. They were sued by the Trump administration over an interview they did with Kamala Harris. Trump did not like the way that they conducted their interview with Kamala Harris, and he sued them. Now, this is the kind of case that judges regularly throw the fuck out of court. And yet, before it could even get to court, ABC News's parent company settled, surrendered, right? You want to know why? Because they're trying to do a merger, and Trump could stop that merger. So here you got straight up corruption. This is the effect of Trump. He corrupts everything that he touches. If you look at his career, chat, ever since he was a real estate guy in New York City in the 80s, everything this man has touched has turned to shit. And if you look at the country since 2016, I think you could make the same argument.
Immigration and customs enforcement gripped the city. As protesters clashed with law enforcement officers, blocking roads, vandalizing, and setting cars on fire, President Donald Trump deployed National Guard troops despite California Governor Gavin Newsome's objections.
You have violent people, and we're not going to let them get away with it.
Here's what we know so far about how the chaos unraveled. June 6, Friday, U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents were carrying out a series of immigration sweeps across Southern California. Reports of federal agents running after people in a parking lot of a Home Depot in Westlake started circulating. Around 3 p.m. local time, a crowd of dozens gathered in the Fashion District near downtown Los Angeles after ICE agents appeared at an apparel manufacturer there. Video shows what appears to be ICE agents loading at least 2 white, unmarked vehicles with people in handcuffs. Crowds gather around the vehicles. Some are seen even standing in front trying to stop the vehicle from going further. Later in the afternoon, hundreds of protesters gathered outside the Los Angeles Federal Building, calling for an end to immigration raids in the city. Footage shows protesters vandalizing the building and heckling law enforcement. Police with riot gear were seen confronting the protesters with batons and what appeared to be tear gas rifles. The Los Angeles Police Department posts on X saying there is an unlawful assembly in the area of Aliso Street in downtown LA and advises demonstrators and others to leave the area. The next day, around 10:15 a.m., the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department responded to reports of a large crowd gathering in Paramount, a small city about 20 miles south of downtown Los Angeles. amid false rumors of immigration agents planning a raid on a Home Depot in the area. Officers warned the protesters.
Look, they're saying false rumors, right? It's impossible to know because the federal government now lies regularly, right? So they're saying that their government source, contradicted those rumors. Anyway, we don't know what we don't know, but this is ABC News very much keeping their head down, very much kissing the ring of the Trump administration. And it's kind of sad to see. Didn't they just fire somebody too, chat? I mean, like I was telling you about the settlement that they did with Trump over a ridiculous court case. For comparison, chat, Fox News did a interview with Donald Trump around the same time during the election, in which case they asked him if he would release, a number of records that people, controversial historical cases like JFK. And they're like, you're going to release the JFK files? He says, yes. You're going to release the alien files? He says, yes. You're going to release this file? Finally, they ask him, are you going to release the Epstein files, right? And if you watched the interview on Fox, you saw Trump say yes. And then there was a cut. Why is there a cut? What's in between? Well, when you look online on, online, Fox has the whole interview. And what was in the cut was Trump backing off of that statement of, yes, I will release the Epstein files, and saying, well, there's a lot of fake stuff in that world. So maybe not. Maybe not. I wouldn't want any innocent people to get hurt because that's a bunch of fake stuff. That Epstein stuff, it's all fake stuff. And yeah, Elon Musk has even acknowledged this, right? That Trump looks guilty as a fuck when it comes to his involvement with Epstein. That is the same kind of thing. That is Fox News cutting out a section of an interview to make Trump look like he is not a pedophile. When for all we know, he very well may be one. He may be one, chat. He was definitely a good friend of Jeffrey Epstein. He's definitely got some weird quotes talking about underage women and Epstein, and it's just just a complete double standard. And then he turns around and sues ABC because they didn't show all of Kamala Harris's interview, and there was a section in there that looked bad for her or something. Same kind of shit, but for it's bad when ABC News does it with Kamala. It's not bad when Fox does it. For when Fox wipes Trump's fucking ass, when Fox cleans his fucking dirty diaper up for him, so to keep him from looking like a pedophile, which is what he was sounding like when he says, I don't know if I will release the Epstein files because there's a lot of fake stuff in there. There's a lot of fake stuff. I wouldn't want anyone innocent to be smeared by that. Like, that's almost him saying that there's shit about him in the Epstein files, and that's why, which is exactly what Elon said. Anyway.
Protesters to disperse as intensity grew. Another protest occurred in Compton, with some protesters starting a series of vandalization, including setting a car on fire. Around 6 p.m., President Donald Trump signed a memo ordering 2,000 National Guard troops to LA. Protesters were seen throwing rocks, glass bottles, and fireworks at officers throughout the night as officers fired flashbang grenades and less lethal projectiles. Members of the California National Guard arrived in downtown Los Angeles shortly before 4 a.m. on June 8th. The deployment is the first time in decades that a state's National Guard had been activated without a request from its governor. 22 Democratic governors called Trump's deployment of the National Guard in California, quote, an alarming abuse of power. Protesters started marching in downtown Los Angeles, chanting and holding signs that read, "Fight Trump." The LAPD went on, quote, tactical alert, and the use of less lethal munitions has been authorized by police. With the LAPD and National Guard present on the scene.
So the thing they're not telling you is that at first the LAPD was not using tear gas. All right. And look, I hate the LAPD. Like I said, it's got a bad history. The reason that OJ was set free was because one of the cops that was on the case of investigating OJ, one of the cops turned out to be a white supremacist, turned out to be a literal Aryan Nation dude. And so his testimony was undermined. That's why OJ, who is very likely, sorry, I got to be really careful about how I say this, right? Who a lot of people think may be a murderer, right? That's why OJ was set free was because of they had out and out white supremacists in the police force. So I'm not a fan of the LAPD, but I will say that compared to the feds who were shooting tear gas, pepper spray, like all kinds of this, these less than lethal, means against the protesters. The LAPD in the beginning were very cautious, right? They did not use those rounds. They did not shoot tear gas at people, and they were doing everything they could to de-escalate the situation, because if you're LAPD, you don't want this going on. And in general, with a protest, if you don't provoke, if you don't escalate the crowd, if you don't show up with military gear, people protest, they let off some steam, and the protest ends. For better or for worse, I happen to think this is a pretty big issue, and I got no problem with this protest going long term. But just the nature of a protest is it will tend to lose energy if the cops respond in a reasonable way, where they're protecting people, but they're not escalating things. You had the exact opposite tack being taken by the federal law enforcement, that being the Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, along with the DHS and the FBI and whoever else Trump had pulled in. Trump pulled in a whole bunch of federal law enforcement to assist ICE in its duty, and that means that those people are not doing their job. That federal law enforcement is not on the case. But yeah, you had a very different. So what happened is that Trump and the feds, they made a mess. And now you get to the situation, you get to the point where the LAPD is having to clean it up, right? And they do end up, authorizing these less than lethal tactics, and more militarized presence for the police in general, just because the situation had deteriorated that much from the intervention. The federal intervention has done nothing but escalate this situation, right? That as bad as the LAPD was and is, at least they were trying to de-escalate. Trump's got no interest in that, though, chat. He wants fireworks. He wants fights. He wants an excuse to crack down and be a dictator on all days, not just day one.
Protesters walked on and halted traffic on a portion of the 101 freeway. Officials say 2 LAPD officers were injured by motorcyclists attempting to breach a skirmish line. Multiple police vehicles were seen damaged with shattered windows.
What we're seeing in LA is chaos caused by the administration. People should exercise their right to protest. That's their First Amendment right. But people should also exercise that right peacefully. We do not want to play into the administration's hands.
We're sick of Trump. We're sick of everything. America's really scary right now. I can't keep sitting by watching my brothers and sisters getting taken. We are no different from you.
President Donald Trump has since deployed 4,000 total National Guardsmen and 700 Marines to Los Angeles to support law enforcement. California Governor Gavin Newsome and California Attorney General.
Okay, so we just watched, this is Karen Bass here. Let's see if I can find her. Where's Karen Bass? Here. This is Karen Bass, mayor of LA. Right, the Onion did a little satire, right, of what Karen Bass said here. Protesters urged not to give the Trump administration pretext for what it is already doing. Los Angeles, responding to escalating clashes between civilian activists and militarized immigration authorities, Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass publicly urged protesters Monday not to give the Trump administration any pretext for what they're already doing, and will keep doing no matter what. Angelenos, she said, don't engage in violence and give the administration an excuse to inflict all the damage they have been inflicting carte blanche for months and months on end, said Bass, adding that Trump and his team are just looking for a reason to respond with violence, and they would have done whether or not any of this had happened. Don't fan the flame that has been fanned behind the scenes at the White House since day one of Trump's term in office. You don't want them to start abducting people in broad daylight and deporting people, would you? No. Let's not become scapegoats for the horrific violations of civil liberties that would have eventually landed at your doorstep regardless. At press time, Bass warned that Trump was using the action of the protesters to justify sending the National Guard that had been pre-deployed to the conflict days before it even began. So there we go. Onion is roasting Karen Bass here. And rightly so, I would say. All right, we got one more thing. Wait, do we have one more thing to look at?
That breaking news is another live look at protests continuing into the night in Los Angeles and here in Portland as well, in response to immigration arrests and deportations. On the left,
so yeah, this is a Portland channel, it looks like.
Side of your screen is law enforcement in downtown LA earlier tonight with zip ties around their wrists of some protesters. On the right side is some footage from our crews of protesters tonight at the ICE detention facility in Southwest Portland. And tonight we are taking a deep dive at both of those protests as they unfold. Thanks for joining us at 11. I'm Barry Mangold.
Barry Mangold? I don't know. What is up with that name? Barry Mangold. Is this the left's new Joe Rogan, chat? He's a Portland broadcaster. I mean, that doesn't mean that he's left-wing, right? Plenty of the Kasperian effect going down on up and down the West Coast, right? In terms of wealthy liberals that are going right-wing. But Mangold, right? I mean, that seems like that's what the Democratic Party is looking for. Somebody who can talk to the man, talk to the men, talk about men stuff with the men, reach out to men. He's the gold. He's Mangold. We've struck gold here, chat, with Barry Mangold. Let's give him a chance.
Now, on the fourth day of protests in Los Angeles, roughly 700 Marines are now responding to the city, in addition to thousands of California National Guard troops. Here in Portland, it's a different situation. Arthun V. Verma was covering a protest outside the ICE facility near the south waterfront off of I-5, but Thunvi, in just the last 30 or 40 minutes, you and your photographer decided to get some distance from the protest. Tell us why.
Yeah, so Barry, in the last 30-ish minutes or so, a mob of about 30 people charged at us with a bat and sticks. And moments before that, they were yelling racial slurs at my colleague and I. Luckily, we had security and they ushered us out of the situation, and we are totally okay. And we're here to do our job and tell you about how things were.
Anybody want to tell me about this station? Any Oregonians in chat? I believe we had some Oregonians earlier. This is News 5 WCYB. I am not clear who chased her, right? They're yelling racial slurs, so I can guess. It kind of sounds like some counter protesters, but she's not telling us that.
Before all of that transpired, and while they were passionate, they were certainly peaceful.
So now she's not talking about the people that chased her, obviously, right? She's talking about the protesters, right?
Tell us why.
Yeah, so Barry, in the last 30-ish minutes or so, a mob of about 30 people charged at us with a bat and sticks. And moments before that, they were yelling racial slurs at my colleague and I. Luckily, we had security and they ushered us out of the situation, and we are totally okay. And we're here to do our job and tell you about how things were before all of that transpired. And while they were passionate, they were certainly peaceful.
This is so useless. It sounds like she's talking about the people with bats yelling racial slurs. Obviously, that's not what she means, right? But look, here's the deal. Like, what I'd like is for her to give me an idea of what faction it was that did that, right? And I think I already know, but she was there, and I'd love to hear from her. But yeah, I don't know. This is just confused gobbledygook, right? I think she means that the protests were passionate, but they were peaceful before that. And then, and again, right-wing, like, Patriot Prayer weirdos. I mean, this is Oregon, right? Or Proud Boys, or whoever the fuck was in the city to counter the protests, right? Chasing her down does not mean that the protests were peaceful and now they're violent. Like, the people that she saw is, ostensibly were peaceful. And then she ran into some other people with bats and yelling racial slurs, which, not too uncommon for Portland to get invaded by right-wing thugs. It's something that the people of Portland are pretty used to at this point.
It's been multiple days since some started camping outside the ICE building in South Portland. Many fired up about deportation.
Got to show that American flag.
My father is an immigrant, and he's been taken from my family by ICE multiple times. It has destroyed us, and he is one of the most hardworking people I know.
Portland Police Chief Bob Day confirming 2 protesters were arrested over the weekend.
This is an unusual step. We traditionally do not clear the driveway. We did take that initial step on.
Again, context. I think he's talking about a driveway outside of the police station, or I guess it could be some federal building where maybe people are being taken. We don't know because they cut the clip too tight.
Saturday night, Sunday morning, which I am in agreement with. I believe it was an appropriate action by our members to de-escalate a potentially tense situation.
No troops on our streets! No troops on our streets!
Over in downtown Vancouver, a similar sentiment.
Defend due process! Defend due process!
I live across the street from a farm, berry farm, and I watch the immigrants every day go out and work their butts off to provide us food.
Others, like this veteran, unhappy with President Donald Trump's decision to bring the National Guard into protests against ICE in Los Angeles.
The National Guard should not be there. Let the local police handle it. And if he actually sends in the Marines, they shouldn't be there either. They're not supposed to be there.
A lot to break down there in terms of the metro area. Now, we do have the extended press conference with Chief Bob Day to talk about how they plan to go about protests in the future. More on that on our website at katu.com. Barry?
All right, Dhanvi Verma, thank you. And a lot going on in the metro area. You can go to our website to see an extended version of our interview with Police Chief Bob Day in Portland and his conversation with the press on how to handle upcoming protests. And in response to the protests, a spokesperson for ICE said this tonight: U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement fully respects the constitutional rights of all people to peace.
Of course they do.
Fully express their opinions. That being said, ICE.
And I'm sure that the people in chat cheering on a curfew also really respect First Amendment rights as well. As long as you're using your First Amendment rights to smash cars over your sports team winning the national championship, and it's not to say that the illegal actions of ICE and the Trump administration are actually illegal, right? As long as you use your First Amendment rights responsibly, as long as you use it for stuff like that.
Remains committed to performing its immigration enforcement mission consistent with federal law and agency policy.
Steve, late today, they got part of what they're asking for when a judge set bail at $50,000 for David Huerta's release. However, Huerta still faces the possibility of federal felony criminal charge, and say that in general, immigrants are coming increasingly under attack. Led by the Service Employees International Union and others, this march and rally called for an end to the immigration raids and for David Huerta's immediate release. Huerta is an SEIU president in California. Union members say he was assaulted, injured, and detained while advocating for immigrant workers.
All I can say is that he was exercising his First Amendment rights. Like we do in many of these demonstrations, it's a constitutionally protected right.
David Huerta, a U.S. citizen, was picked up. If we are not all angry and outraged and see the demise of our democracy in this moment, then we're not paying attention.
About 200 people took part and filled the plaza outside City Hall, where they denounced the Trump administration and called for people to stand together against injustice.
And so for us, it's really about ensuring that
Keith Harper says the COVID shutdown wasn't illegal, though, right? I'm sorry, Keith. Did Biden and Trump, did they not kill enough grandmas for you by opening up the country before we're even done dealing with the pandemic? That was your capitalist overlords telling your ass to get back to work. They didn't want to see any free handouts either. Well, you know what Trump's most popular policy was? The stimulus, right? Giving free money to people to not work. That was Trump's most popular policy.
That, you know, that they have due process of law, regardless of their immigration status.
They also said the National Guard should have never been mobilized against ordinary citizens, especially when California's government.
Okay, so Promisa has come in from Asmongold's chat to tell me they're enforcing in the immigration law. They're protesting about them following and enforcing the laws. Immigrants can come into the country legally. Wrong. That's the problem. That's what you're missing, Promisa, and you're not the only one. You're missing that the immigration in this country is broken, and it hasn't been fixed by the Republicans, and it hasn't been fixed by the Democrats. It hasn't been fixed by Trump, and it hasn't been fixed by Biden, right? Trump's policy remain in Mexico, even if you are running from a government that's like trying to kill you, right? Even if you can't physically afford to stay in Mexico. Biden's policy was you can come into the United States and get on an app, and maybe in 4 years we'll have a trial. We'll see if your asylum claim is valid, right? And neither of these are good. What they need is judges to look at the asylum claims and say, which ones are real and which ones are fake, right? Because what we've had is a disaster predicated on American foreign policy. In no small part, Trump's actions in countries like Venezuela have resulted in lots of Venezuelans being displaced and coming to the United States for asylum. So Trump causes the problem, and then he bitches about the people that have to leave their country because of this, right? Get it through your head. There's no pathway to citizenship. It's broken. That's why people come in illegally. Because they can't come in illegally. That's what needs to be fixed. That's what needs to be addressed.
Governor didn't want a military force deployed.
Our fight for David Huerta is symbolic.
Seattle Mayor Bruce Harrell made a brief appearance at the rally and voiced his support for David.
The asylum claims just need a judge to look into them, right? Some of the asylum claims are good, some of the asylum claims are bad. But look at it this way, right? If you're being persecuted by a fucked up government, or worse yet, if you're being targeted by gangs in your country, I want other places to offer you asylum. If your country becomes too dangerous, especially if it's because of United States foreign policy, which many of these immigrants it is, right? But the problem is we can't see which claims are valid and which claims are not, because they just don't have enough judges. They're asking people to wait 4 years, and wait 4 years in Mexico or wait 4 years in America. They're both bad policies. Okay?
Huerta and his cause. City Councilmember Alexis Mercedes Rink was also on hand. The Seattle.
How did Trump cause Venezuelan migration? Sanctions that he placed on Venezuela. That's how.
Ended peacefully. Unlike the images we've seen out of Los Angeles with clashes between protesters and police, which led to dozens of arrests.
I think this is a moment for us to come together and for our local and state leaders to actually stand and also see this on attack of state and local rights.
So although Huerta was allowed to post bail, he is not in the clear at this point. He still faces the possibility of a felony charge for conspiracy to impede officers. Reporting live, Joel Marino, Como News. Joel.
And right here in the capital region, the New York Immigration Coalition is also calling for
action. So wait, what? I'm trying to figure out what we're watching here. News 5 WCYB. It does feel like, though, that this segment is pulled together from different local news. So I don't even know if this is the Portland station.
Yeah, so
but what it is giving us is an understanding of the expansion of the protests, which, like I said, is likely to happen, especially when look what Trump's doing, is going to escalate things and it's going to spread things. This is going to become a nationwide movement, whether Trump realizes it or not.
Lawmakers and allies are set to gather at West Capitol Park in Albany. Lawmakers and allies, that's where they're going to be. Laura, so can you tell us what they're pushing for?
Good morning. The New York Immigration Coalition and supporters are calling on legislative leaders to bring critical public safety and an immigration rights vote to law. They want elected officials to stand with their immigrant constituents.
Deport Melania. Chat, for the record, I don't really think that Melania should be deported, although Elon...
And the governor to sign both bills into law. CBS.
No, I don't think he should be deported either. I just think that his company should be nationalized, especially SpaceX. Right? That's NASA. They just sold off NASA to a billionaire. That's ridiculous that we have to rely on an unreliable shithead like Elon Musk for space travel. That is so fucked up. I mean, you saw him crash out on Trump. I'm no fan of Trump's, but he crashed out in the worst way imaginable. That is not the kind of person that I want responsible for the safety of astronauts. And that's the position that they've placed him in. Yeah, I mean, I don't, I was joking around earlier about Melania and Elon, may very well be not here legally. The irony, that there's so many MAGA people that are fans of them, and yet these are, from all we can tell, illegal immigrants themselves. But I don't want anybody deported.
Recently spoke with activists Lael Davidson and Renee Roundtree with Indivisible ADK Saratoga, who have been fighting for a man residing in Glens Falls that was recently detained by ICE. Yuri Zinofiev walked into the ICE office in Ballston Spot twice a year for years, but last week he was detained.
This is a man who is a working part of our community, who has been incarcerated for no reason without due process.
It's horrific. It's very sad. When you think that he's been here for 25 years, he's been a productive member of our community.
And this is what it is, right? This is what it is. This is what gets people up in arms. They're taking out people that are community members, that have ties to this country. That is when the government should think twice about deporting people. I mean, it's a pretty good, you want people to integrate? These people are integrated. These people are integrated into the community. They have roots. They have ties. You are not just hurting them when you deport them. You are hurting their families. You are hurting their friends. And to be real, especially when we're talking about California, you're hurting the economy.
He now sits behind bars at the Buffalo Federal Detention Facility. Without immediate action from Albany, families remain at risk of being torn apart through local police and ICE. The rally is expected to be held at noon at West Capitol Park in Albany. Reporting live in Albany, Laura Jimette, CBS 6 News.
For an ICE protest in Providence.
Yeah, it started outside the federal building before
Rhode Island.
Protesters marched through city streets, as you can see right here. Tonight, keeps John Perry.
Wait, Providence, Rhode Island. Isn't there another Providence? Is it Maine? Where's the other Providence, chat?
Providence now with the latest, John.
Well, Dan and Emily, protesters tell us that inside that building is a Homeland Security office. A few hundred gathered, including a state rep.
Abolish ICE! Abolish ICE!
A call for action.
I think that it's clear to all the regular working people of the U.S. that these attacks, these mass deportations and raids on our immigrant communities are completely unjust.
We're talking about how resistance is glorious and that we will be victorious!
Protesters tonight gathering near the Federal Center building on Westminster Street. The rally was planned by the group PSL Rhode Island in response to the ongoing protests in Los Angeles, which the National Guard was called to.
Do you guys support how chaotic these protests have gotten? Shouldn't they be peaceful?
Do you guys do you disavow Hamas?
I think people have a right to dignity. We have a right to be with our families. We have a right to work and live safely. And people's anger right now is righteous.
The protesters then took off, walking down the streets of Providence, going block to block for hours. Their message was clear.
It means fundamentally
Do you condemn Hamas?
that the streets belong to the people. The streets belong to the working class. If we can and need to, we can shut it down.
Tonight's protest comes a day after Rhode Island State Representative Enrique Sanchez called for a, quote, massive anti-ICE protest on social media, saying, quote, like the one in L.A.
Shouldn't they be peaceful, though? Shouldn't they be peaceful protests?
What a dickhead.
Do you support what's going on?
What a fucking dickhead.
I condemn all violence.
But you didn't condemn.
No, he's like the one in LA, but I saw on my TV screen that there was a car on fire. So if you say the one in LA, that means you want a car to also be lit on fire, even though that may not have been done by a protester. That may not have even been done by somebody who's even sympathetic towards immigrants, right? You don't fucking know. The guy doing backwards donuts and running down protesters, do you think is that part of the protest too? What an asshole. Not Enrique Sanchez here, the reporter talking to him.
Protests in Rhode Island. Did you mean peaceful, or did you mean what was going on in Los Angeles?
Sir, we have bubbles being blown here. Yes, I fucking meant peaceful, you obnoxious dickhead.
I believe my words were taken out of context. We need to show the people power.
Yeah, and you're talking to the guy doing it.
We need to show who has the real control and who has the real power in this country.
Chat, those bubbles are all Hamas, though. They're terrorist bubbles.
And right now it's unclear if any more protests will ensue here in Providence. For the NBC 10 News Night Team reporting live, I'm John Perrick.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Darian Trotter. The National Guard has arrived in Los Angeles after violent protests over ICE raids intensified.
Ooh, violent protests.
Friday. President Trump signed a memorandum that deployed 2,000 National Guardsmen to help restore order there. Law enforcement in riot gear formed a line near the Metropolitan Detention Center after an unlawful assembly was declared. It's where many of the people arrested in ICE raids were being brought. Flashbangs and other irritants were used to break up the crowd, while California Governor Gavin Newsome and Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass have criticized the move as unnecessary. Those in the Trump administration say order needs to be restored.
Upside down. Did you see the upside down shield? Oh no, it's fascist Barbie.
Gavin Newsome.
Chat, you got to be careful when you're around her. Like, her lip filler might explode on you. It could be dangerous.
Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass have criticized the move as unnecessary. Those in the Trump administration say order needs to be
Yeah, the upside down police shield there.
Restored.
Unfortunately, we've seen some violent protests happen, and that's why these National Guard soldiers are being utilized to help with some security.
Wait, isn't she the one that shot the dog?
Security in some areas.
This is the dog murderer.
Yes, they're there at the direction of the president in order to keep.
She thinks that if she puts enough filler in her lips and does enough cosplay as like a ICE agent, that maybe we'll forget that she's a dog murderer. But I haven't forgotten.
Peace and allow people to be able to protest, but also to keep law and order. That is incredibly important to the president.
The memorandum will allow National Guard troops to be in Los Angeles for at least the next 60 days. Protests are continuing throughout the city today, and we will be sure to keep an eye on them for you. All eyes have been on Los Angeles, but other anti-ICE demonstrations are happening across the nation. San Antonio had its own protest this morning, calling for a stop to national ICE raids. News 4 San Antonio's Phil Sterling joins us now live from downtown, where it happened. Phil.
Darian, first and foremost, this protest was nothing like you've been seeing in Los Angeles. It was a peaceful protest where people...
Yeah, ours was peaceful, and LA's was not. And the LA protesters are bad, but the San Antonio protesters are good because there was nobody took a picture of somebody
up here, but now there are
torching a Waymo here because it's San Antonio and we don't have Waymos out here.
Spoke out against.
We don't even have recycling bins out here. No, wait, San Antonio's New Mexico. They probably do have recycling bins.
Going on across the country. They lined up on these steps to have their voices heard. The name of the protest, ICE out of San Antonio. People were holding up signs saying things like abolish ICE and immigrants make America great again. There were even chants saying from Palestine to Mexico, all the walls have got to go. NBC News reports on Thursday, ICE said it had detained more than 2,200 people, the most in a single day ever. Some of those who were in San Antonio with immigrants, some of those who were here in San Antonio with immigrants going to immigration court only had their cases dismissed, and then they were put into custody after they went to those cases.
We're tired of seeing those horrific scenes that we have been seeing all over the country, where families are being...
You see what they're doing, chat? They're dismissing immigration cases. So in other words, if you want to deport these people, there's legal means that you could use. They're showing up for their court date. But what they're doing instead is they're dropping the case as if, okay, you're free to go, you know, right? And then they catch him in the hallway or they catch him outside the court, right? You know, they raid the fucking courtroom to disappear these people, and then they don't actually get their due process. They don't even get, you know, anything.
Right in front of a justice institution where we're supposed to be seeing due process.
The protest organizers say it's important to hold protests like this to strengthen the community behind one message. I reached out to officials with the city to see if they had a statement on this protest, and I also reached out to SAPD to see if there are any concerns with any future protests possibly turning violent like some of those in Los Angeles. Phil Sterling reporting live, or well, they didn't get back to me, but Phil Sterling reporting live, News 4 San Antonio.
Ooh, it's his first day on the job. Go easy on him. I don't know. He looks like he's new at the gig. I can't tell. Anyway, chat, that's gonna do it for us today. If you are liking what you're seeing, make sure to leave me subscribe so you can find the channel. Again, make sure to leave me a like because it does help me out a lot. Thank you for all the support during the stream. I really do appreciate it. It keeps me going and it keeps me able to keep on bringing this to you day after day. I think we're gonna do the bonus content because we do have bonus content. We're at 100 out of 200, right? But we did get to 100, so that's good for one bonus content. Now, the one thing that I've realized though is that how governments spy on protesters, which may be in the lead, I think that's wired. And I will probably get copyright claimed if I do. I didn't realize that, chat. I thought it was just a video essay. I was like, oh, cool, a video essay? Look, if I was Hassan and I was just watching this on Twitch, it would be fine. But regardless, chat, I am going to end the stream on Shorts. You are welcome to come along with us. I'm still streaming on Twitch and on YouTube in the horizontal format, but I'm going to end this... Gonna end the lovely short stream. It's been lovely meeting you all, interacting with you, arguing with some of you, learning from others of you. We laughed, we cried, we had an amazing time. But yeah, we gotta go back to the regular stream and watch some bonus content. So I hope you're all having a good day. And yeah, salute to the mods. Thank you, mods, for keeping us safe in the stream. Again, chat, if you're finding yourself banned, if you're finding your chats getting deleted, don't act like a bot, because there are an awful lot of those in chat, and you should be fine. Anyway, bye-bye to short stream. Let me end this and raid you all into the regular stream, if you so choose. Oh yeah, we were up to around 700 today. Okay.